Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the Wallingford Planning and Zoning Commission to order. It's our Monday, August 12th, 2024 meeting. If we'd all please first rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And at this point in time, I'd like to introduce the members of the commission that are here this evening, as well as staff members. To my immediate right is James Fitzsimmons, commission member. Next to Jim is Jeff Cohan, also a commission member. Next to Jeff is Brian Rivard, who's a alternate on the commission. To my immediate left is J.P. Vanoit, the vice chairperson of the commission. Next to J.P. is Steve Allenson, secretary, and next to Steve is David Parent, a alternate, and next to Dave is Joseph Sanders, also an alternate on the commission. At the staff table to my left is Cheryl Ann Tubby, our recording secretary. Next to Cheryl Ann is Kevin Pagini, our town planner, and at the staff table to my right, making a cameo appearance this evening, is Allison Kapuscinski, our town engineer. Our first order of business is consideration for approval of the minutes of our July 8th, 2024 meeting. Any commission members have any corrections, additions to the minutes before I call for a motion to approve them? Seeing none, I'd...
Commissioner? Yep.
Yes.
The third paragraph, we should change that to Vice Chair Benoit. It says Chairman Seichter noted the following agenda items will not be heard tonight. If you did,
Excuse me?
if you did note that, you've got quite a voice projection capability.
Yeah, I don't think we go that far to Iceland. Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the July 8, 2024 minutes with the proposed amendment.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And abstentions? And I will abstain as I wasn't at the meeting. Which brings us to our first item on our agenda is a public hearing. I'm going to drop down to number 4, which is a zoning text amendment for water quality volume section 4.13B1D. Mr. Allenson, if you'd please read a legal notice and note all correspondence for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excuse me while I'm struggling with paper still. Number 902-24, PZC text amendment to update language in section 4.13.B.1.B of the Town of Wallingford's zoning regulation -WI Watershed Interchange District. We have an interoffice memorandum from Scott Shipman, Senior Engineer, dated June 20th, 2024. An inspection report from the Wallingford Fire Department, dated July 19th, 2024. And correspondence from, I can't pronounce the acronym, South Central Regional Council of Governments, dated August 9th, 2024. And I believe that is all.
Thank you, Mr. Allenson. If the applicant would please introduce himself and begin his presentation.
Hello, I'm Scott Shipman, Senior Engineer at the Wallingford Water and Sewer Divisions. I propose this text amendment to the Watershed Protection Overlay District due to a change from the state of Connecticut. They've recently updated their stormwater quality manual in March of this year. Our regulations called for the water quality volume, which is the first initial flush of rainwater to be treated as up to the first 1 inch of rainfall. That was per the old Connecticut stormwater manual. The new manual now defines that as 1.3 inches. So I propose this change to bring us in line with the state requirements.
Seems like a fairly simple presentation.
Hopefully.
Commission members with questions for the applicant. Mr. Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Don't really have any questions, but I think that, the South Central Regional Commission approved the text amendment as not having any negative impacts to Long Island Sound and surrounding communities. But I just wanted to point out to Scott, you got a lot of accolades last week from the commission for being one of the first in Connecticut to match the town regulations with the state regulations. So we all applauded you and said,
Thank you.
hopefully Scott has started a trend and the rest of the Connecticut cities will do the same. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. Other commission members? Mr. Pagini, any comments?
No, I fully support the amendment, and that's it.
Good. This is a public hearing. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak on the application? Just like to see if anybody would like to speak. Raise your hand. Seeing none, I'd bring it back to the applicant for any further comments, but I suspect you don't have any.
No additional comments.
Good enough. At this point in time, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we close public hearing for application 902-24, a zoning text amendment, water quality volume section 4.13B1B.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fitzsimmons. Voting beginning with Mr. Fitzsimmons.
Yes.
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 And yet, and yes. I think we have one too many yeses here. Here you go. At this point in time, I guess I would just make one final comment. I certainly commend you. I certainly echo what Mr. Cohan said to bring us into compliance, and this certainly does. So with that, I'd entertain a motion on the application.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve application 902-24, zoning text amendment, water quality volume section 4.13.B.1.B, watershed protection overlay district on memo dated June 20th, 24, because this puts us in compliance with the state statute.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second on the motion?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fitzsimmons. Voting beginning with Mr. Fitzsimmons.
Yes.
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 And yes, your application's been approved. Thank you, sir. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go back to the top of our agenda. Again, this is a continuation of a public hearing. It's a re-subdivision. It's an 830G Sunwood Development Corp., 1136 Durham Road. If the applicant would please come forward to begin preparing for presentation. And Mr. Allenson, if you'd please note all correspondence for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have email correspondence from Andrea Gomes, dated July 31st, 2024, to Allison Kapuscinski. Email correspondence from Allison Kapuscinski to Kevin Pagini, dated August 6th, 2024. Email correspondence from Mike Hughes to the Planning and Zoning Commission, dated August 6, 2024. Email correspondence from Brian Schock to the Planning and Zoning Commission, dated August 6, 2024. A memorandum to the Planning and Zoning Commission from the Department of Engineering, dated August 6, 2024. Memorandum from the Department of Engineering to the Planning and Zoning Commission, dated August 6, 2024. An inter-office memorandum from Scott Shipman, Senior Engineer, to Kevin Pagini, Town Planner, dated August 6, 2024. What appears to be multi-signature petition or request. Not sure how to define it. It's not dated. It begins with "we, the undersigned, would like." Memorandum to the Planning and Zoning Commission from Janice Small Corporation Counsel, dated August 7th, 2024. Email correspondence from Kevin Pagini, Town Planner, to the Planning and Zoning Commission dated August 7th, 2024. Email correspondence from Kevin Pagini, Town Planner, to Planning and Zoning Commission dated August 8th, 2024. Memorandum from Acting Fire Chief Wilson to Planning and Zoning Commission, Kevin Pagini, dated August 9th, 2024. Correspondence from John Ventura, Chief of Police, to the Planning and Zoning Commission, dated August 9th, 2024. Email correspondence from, well, it's a thread of correspondence from Kevin Pagini and other individuals: Andrea Gomes, Timothy Hollister, Allison Kapuscinski, Mark Bertucci, Bob Wiedenman, Gina Mazinski, and Christopher Giuliano, starting date August 12th, 2024. A set of plans entitled Turning Movement Analysis Fire Truck, the Cozy Corner and 8-30G Subdivision, dated 6/28/2024. I'm not quite sure how to read these in, Mr. Chairman, but I've got a significant amount of drainage reports, and we'll be here all night if I go through them. So about an inch and a half of drainage reports. And I think that is all.
Good, thank you, Mr. Allenson. Before the applicant continues the presentation, it was noted earlier, I did not attend the last month's meeting, but I did review all of the correspondence, all of the information that was presented, as well as viewed the meeting on YouTube or whatever. And so if we are taking action on this application this evening, I will be participating. With that, I'll turn it over to the applicant to continue with the presentation from last month.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commission members, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I'm Attorney Tim Hollister with the Hartford office of the firm of Hinckley, Allen, and Snyder. Mr. Wiedemann, our client, the head of Sunwood Development, is in the audience behind me. And oh, I'm sorry, I thought that was Chris. Yeah. Anyway, two guys with orange shirts are sitting to my left. Bob Wiedemann at the table and Christopher Giuliano across the room, and to my immediate left, Mark Vertucci, our professional traffic engineer from Fuss & O'Neill, joined here tonight by his colleague Gina Mazinski, who spoke to you last month. Mr. Chairman, through you to the Secretary, there were a couple items that were just read that I'm not sure I have seen. Were they all posted on the town website and before tonight, or were they just in your files? I'm not sure.
I think Mr. Pagini probably would be the appropriate one to answer that. Which ones are you referring to, sir?
Well, there was one reference from Janice Small, Attorney Small, and the police chief in particular. I'm not sure I've seen those.
If you just hold 1 minute, I have one here for you right
Okay,
here.
thank you.
The memorandum from Janice Small is referenced as 102-24-15.
Sir, if you'd like to come up to the table, you can have my copies. You're welcome.
All right, let me begin with a chronology. We have been away from this for a month, and I think everyone would benefit by sort of getting us all on the same page. This is a re-subdivision application to create 13 lots off Durham Road near Grebe Road. It is filed under General Statutes 8-30G, which is known as the Connecticut Affordable Housing Statute, and that is because the applicant's commitment is that 30% of the homes will be preserved for 40 years for moderate income households, and that would be 4 of the proposed 13 homes. The consequence of that is that if the commission denies and the Sunwood determines that it should appeal to the court, then the burden will shift to the commission to prove in court that the denial was based on a substantial public health or safety concern. Chronologically, the application was originally filed in January. I would note that except for a reconfiguration of the alignment of the site driveway and Grebe Road, it really has not changed since about March of this year. So we're going to be talking about traffic, and just important to note that there's really nothing new, just arguments about what the situation is, but no revised plans in any of the recent correspondence. In any event, we withdrew the original re-subdivision application in the month of May because the wetlands application was not yet complete. That was completed, and the wetlands permit was approved in mid-May. So we refiled the re-subdivision application on June 7th, and that is what came before you for hearing on July 8th. Since July 8th, and we are mindful of the admonition that was stated at the end of the last hearing that there should be a process in which there was consultation between the applicant and the town staff, and as much information that could be exchanged should be. So on July 31st, there was a meeting among Mr. Pagini, the town engineer, Kapuscinski, the police chief, my law partner, Andrea Gomes, and I believe those were the attendees. Were you there? Yes, and Mr. Vertucci. And then, as you heard from the secretary's reading, there was an exchange in the last couple of days of emails, one from Fire Marshal Schock talking about or recommending compliance with the Section 503 of the International Residential Code, and then the town engineer's memo. Since we're going to talk about the town engineer's memo, I will say that we received that it was dated August 6th. We received it on August 7th, and Mr. Vertucci and his colleague, Ms. Masinski, worked over the weekend to finish a written reply, and we filed that this morning. So I recognize that there was not ample time for all of us to review that, but we turned it around as quickly as we could, given when we received that information. And then Mr. Giuliano filed with you and the town staff. I filed it earlier electronically with Mr. Pagini and with the town engineer. This diagram showing that what would happen if the cul-de-sac that is proposed were parked bumper to bumper all the way around the cul-de-sac. Could a fire truck still get through? Which, of course, that kind of parking configuration is unlikely, but we diagrammed it anyway, and that the diagram shows that the fire truck would still be able to pass through without obstruction. So that brings us to tonight, and I will say by way of introduction that really the bottom line is we're down to, I think, one issue, which is the adequacy, the safety of the 110-foot separation distance between the proposed entrance to the development, Kyle Court, and the intersection of Durham Road and Grebe Road. So we have reviewed and digested the town engineer's memo, and I guess at this point I have a question for you, Mr. Chairman. I can have Mr. Vertucci respond to the memo, or would you rather have the town engineer present her memo first? Well, we can do it either way, but just want to give you that choice.
I prefer if the applicant, it's
Okay.
your application, your information.
Okay, fine, thank you. Then I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Vertucci to give you our responses to the town engineer's memo of August 6th about the separation distance and related traffic matters. Thank you. Mr. Vertucci.
Thank you, Tim. Good evening. Again, I'm Mark Vertucci. I'm a senior transportation engineer at Fuss & O'Neill. We're located at 146 Hartford Road in Manchester. I am a registered professional engineer in Connecticut. I'm also a certified professional traffic operations engineer through ITE. Did want to briefly just recap some of the chronology here. We did issue an initial traffic memo back in January of this year.
Excuse me, sir, if you could pull the microphone a little closer to you so they can
Sure.
pick you
Yep.
up. Thank you.
We did submit an initial, actually it was a traffic safety review that was submitted on March 12th of this year. We then submitted a supplemental memo which highlighted the proposed intersection improvements at Durham and Grebe roads. That was March 26th, and then we submitted a response letter to an initial round of engineering comments on June 7th. And I'd just like to take a few moments. We did receive some, as Tim mentioned, some additional comments from engineering last week, and just wanted to respond to a few of them. One of the comments, which has been, I think, at the forefront of the discussion with this application, has been the separation distance of Kyle Court with the intersection of Durham Road at the Grebe Road intersection. There is, the memo requests a 250-foot separation distance, which is based on your subdivision regulations. There's been a lot of discussion whether this is a public road versus a private road, and our opinion is that that is not relevant here, because either way, whether it's public or private, we're going to design the road the exact same way. It's going to be the same length, the same width, the same corner radii, the same volume of vehicles are going to be turning into and out of it, and it's in the same location. So when we're talking about separation distances from a traffic engineering standpoint, they're heavily dependent on traffic volumes and speed, both of which are extremely low in this area. On the background volumes on Grebe Road are only 50 vehicles in the peak hour, and the projected traffic generation coming out of this development, we're looking at 12 trips in the morning peak hour and 15 in the afternoon peak hour. So we're talking about very low traffic generation here, very low speeds as well, as we have a stop-controlled intersection. Vehicles approaching Durham Road are decelerating already from a low speed of 25 miles per hour, which was recorded by our automatic traffic recorder device. So here, if we're requiring 250 feet, essentially the site is being rendered undevelopable. We don't even have 250 feet of frontage in either direction on Grebe or Durham Road. And just based on a cursory review, I looked just outside the building here in an area, a small area of several blocks downtown. There's dozens of access locations to developments that are far more intense than this, that are well under 250 feet from intersections. Right out in front of the building, the town hall access driveway, both of them are less than 250 feet from adjacent intersections. The attorney office next door is 100 feet, their parking lot from the adjacent intersection. And even up on North Main Street, the police and fire department driveways are 50 feet, only 50 feet from Church Street across the street. So I can go on and on with a lot of examples here, but not allowing access within 250 feet of a corner, would render just hundreds upon hundreds of parcels throughout the town as either undevelopable or currently in a safety violation as constructed. As far as there was a comment about the site access drive being in the functional area of the Durham-Grebe intersection, and again, given the very low volumes on Grebe Road and the site driveway, the low approach speeds that we talk about, and the intersection realignment, we are proposing to tee up Grebe into Durham Road. We feel the 110-foot separation distance as designed is appropriate and sufficient to allow these to operate safely as two separate and independent intersections. There was some guidance referenced in the town engineer's memo on FHWA guidance on access management. This was based on 30-mile-per-hour approach speeds to an unsignalized stop-controlled intersection and approach queues of 125 feet. Just to equate, 125 feet would be 6 or 7 vehicles lined up on Grebe Road waiting to turn out onto Durham Road. The volumes at that intersection, you rarely have more than a car there waiting at a time to turn out onto Durham Road. So we certainly don't have those conditions present here. So we do not feel that the functional areas of the two intersections are overlapping in this case. There is a reference to ConnDOT Highway Design Manual that was mentioned. Again, we feel that the driveway criteria in the Highway Design Manual is what will govern here. Section 11-8.02 stipulates a minimal tangent allowed between corner radii of two intersecting roads and an access drive, which would be Kyle Court in this case, is 5 feet, and the proposed tangent between the two corners is greater than 50 feet. So we are in excess of that DOT Highway Design Manual guidance here for safe access and egress. As far as the reference separation distance of 400 feet referenced in the Highway Design Manual and the town engineer's memo, there is a 400-foot separation that is specific to mainline traffic and roadways in a situation where you have T intersections on opposite sides of the roadway. That requirement was essentially written for access management guidance on mainline and arterial type roadways. We do not have two opposite T intersections here. We have roadways with adjacent T intersections and much lower volume to what the DOT is talking about with that requirement. So again, we don't feel that 400-foot separation distance would apply in this case. As far as site distances, my colleague Gina Musinski presented at the last meeting. We have sufficient site distance, intersection site distance coming out of Kyle Court, looking in both directions and around the curve on Durham Road. We are also in excess of the stopping site distance requirements on Grebe Road in both directions. In the town engineer's memo, there was a photo that was taken from Durham Road suggesting sight lines may not be sufficient heading northbound on Grebe Road for traffic turning into the site. We don't agree with that. That photo was taken from Durham Road, not the decision point where the driver would initiate the left turn into the site. If a driver is coming down Durham Road, they have to make a right turn, travel 100 feet north on Grebe, stop, assess oncoming traffic, determine whether it's safe, then make the left turn into Kyle Court. So the site distances that apply in this case apply from that decision point on northbound Grebe Road at the Kyle Court driveway. Given this, the photo, which shows a tree, that tree is not blocking that sight line of oncoming traffic. There was a comment as well about the tree canopy. It's a very common occurrence in this town, all throughout Connecticut. You're coming into and out of tree canopies when you're driving on roads. There's trees everywhere. When you're at that decision point on Grebe, you're right in front of the canopy. You're going to have a much better sight line to oncoming traffic and any differences between light and dark than you would at the point from Durham Road where that photo was taken. So I think it's a bit deceiving. It kind of looks like a dark hole there, but that's not what you're going to see as the driver when you're on a Grebe Road northbound waiting to turn left into the site. And then lastly, there was a comment on turning speeds at an intersection, and this is important as well. Currently today, I know that left turns from Durham onto Grebe are traveling at a higher speed. The intersection is skewed, so it encourages left turning traffic to turn at a higher speed than you would like to see at a 90-degree T intersection. As was proposed at the last meeting, we are going to be, if this application were approved, we would realign that intersection and construct it so that Grebe is teeing into Durham Road. This is a significant safety improvement in that in right-angle intersections, you lower the speed of turning vehicles. So your typical default turning speeds are 15 miles per hour for a left-turning vehicle, 9 miles per hour for a right. The traffic software, the industry standard synchro software that we use for intersection analysis has those speeds as the default in the program. We referenced a NACTO reference as well, recommending, that's the National Association of City Transportation Officials, they recommend a 15 mile per hour intersection design speed for 90-degree intersections with lower volumes such as this. So I guess the point here is that we're redesigning the intersections, we're lowering the speeds. Vehicles coming out of the intersection onto Grebe Road northbound are going to be traveling slow. They're 10 to 15 miles per hour max coming out of that intersection. Low speeds would reduce the risk of any rear-end collisions as far as when you have a vehicle waiting to turn left into the site. So just to summarize again, we are confident that Kyle Court, as designed, along with the associated intersection realignment that we're proposing at Durham and Grebe Road, we're confident together these will provide for safe access and egress for residents of this development. The separation distance from Durham Road to Kyle Court is appropriate based on the low volumes and speeds that exist in the vicinity of this intersection. And again, the sight lines, intersection stopping site distance, as well as intersection site distance and stopping site distance, both of those sight lines exceed criteria published in the DOT Highway Design Manual for safe access and egress to the site. And with that, I'll turn it back to Tim.
Thank you. But before I move on to other things, let me just ask Mr. Giuliano or Mr. Wiedemann, do anything you want to add to what Mr. Vertucci said?
Not with respect to the traffic, no.
Okay, good. Thank you. Let me just give my own sort of non-engineer, non-technical comments on the traffic situation, which Attorney Gomes and I have been studying now since January. First is, I want to reemphasize that what Mr. Vertucci just told you is not new. The design has been in place since March. So the points that we're making tonight are a repeat of things that were said in July at the last hearing and were said several times in memos, reports, and analyses during the first application. Second, I do want to comment briefly and respectfully on the comments that were made by a number of neighbors at the last hearing. The essential theme was that the existing conditions, traffic conditions in the neighborhood are dangerous, and the commission should not approve this application to make things worse. Well, I would just point out they're talking about existing conditions, long existing conditions, and this is actually something that I see, Mr. Vertucci sees on a regular basis. Then the theme is, well, it's fine for us, but it's unsafe for anybody else, and I just ask you to look at their comments in that context. I'd also point out that there is an applicant's self-interest here that we should not overlook. Mr. Wiedemann does not want to build an intersection or a driveway that's going to be unsafe for the people who are going to live there, or the people he wants to sell homes to, or the people who live in the neighborhood. So he has a very important interest in making sure that everything is done safely. I'm also going to point out, again, respectfully, that traffic engineering is a very specialized portion of professional engineering, and Mr. Vertucci's qualifications to give you the opinions and insights that he just delivered are, in my experience, without parallel in the state of Connecticut. He is an authoritative voice, and that's why he's sitting here. So to wrap up, and I recognize you might give us the courtesy of finishing up after the staff comments and public comments, but I do believe that everything considered, the commission, do not have a health or safety basis to deny this application. If it is denied and appealed to the court, you can discount my opinion based on the fact that I represent the applicant, but I've been doing these applications for 35 years, and I frankly don't see a court upholding a denial here based on substantial evidence in the record. I have now had a chance to review Attorney Small's memo, and I agree with it in the sense that she says that the very fact that you have a regulation that requires on paper a 250-foot separation distance is not dispositive. The issue is whether it is unsafe in the real world, so to speak, and I think Mr. Vertucci has just explained why that is not the case. Last thing I'll mention is that the town engineer's memo despite the fact that it focused on the separation distance, did address, say, if you're going to approve it, here are conditions of approval, and I can say that we, the applicant, do not have a disagreement with the conditions of approval with two exceptions. One is we don't understand the reason why the applicant is being asked to do a video reconnaissance of the drainage pipes. There's no existing issue or overflow that we're aware of that would justify that request. And then finally, the town engineer recommended a public improvement bond of $357,000. We'd like to see the breakdown of the calculation of that, so I guess that's something that could be negotiated or reviewed at a later time. So with that, Mr. Chairman and Commission members, thank you for hearing us out, and I'll step down at this point.
Thank you, sir. At this point in time, any questions for the applicant by the commission on the presentation? Mr. Pagini, comments?
No, just that I agree with the town engineer's assessment, and I think you have all the information that you would need in front of you, and if you have any further questions after hearing from the applicant or from the commission, I'm here to answer anything.
Thank you. And Mrs. Kapuscinski, what I don't want to do is to get into the kind of the dueling, your traffic engineer and our town engineer, but I guess I would ask our town engineer, obviously you've had an opportunity to review the response to your memo from the applicant. Is that fair to say?
That's correct.
So you've reviewed it, you've taken all that into consideration. Based on that, from your opinion, you're looking at the recommendation you made. Do you have any change in that recommendation, or do you feel that that's still the, after hearing what the applicant representative made, that you still feel that that is your recommendation to the commission, or your opinion?
Thank you. I've reviewed the email that had the response to comments to my memo, and I've also just heard the presentation by the traffic engineer. My opinions in my August 6th, 2024 memo remain unchanged.
Okay.
Thank you.
And again, you've discussed that, at least your memo, you've discussed that with our legal traffic authority, who is our chief of police, and he's concurred with you, at least based on the memo that we've received.
That's
Okay,
my understanding.
good. Thank you. And again, just to the applicant, I just don't want to get back to a
Understood.
back and forth on that, because I think probably from a professional standpoint, I don't think it would be good for either one.
You've given us the opportunity to make our presentation, and that is satisfactory. Thank you.
Good. At this point in time, this is a continuation of the public hearing. Certainly, any members of the public would like to come forward and make any comments. I know there were comments made at the last meeting. Certainly, you have an opportunity to make additional comments. I guess I would request perhaps not to repeat the same comments that may have been made. So, if I could see a show of hands of those individuals that would like to comment on the application. Yes. Okay, what we'll do is I'll start, and I don't see anyone on the right side of the auditorium that would like to comment, so we'll start now in the middle, on the right side of the middle, and we'll start with the young lady in front, and then we'll move toward the back. And again, name and address, please.
Thank you for calling me a young lady, first of all. Appreciate that.
I'm sorry, I should have said a very young lady.
My name is Mary Canfield, and I live at 42 Fairlawn Drive. And, you know, I wasn't going to say a lot, but when I'm hearing, I have to comment on a few things. The first thing I'd like to comment on is that I haven't heard anything said here, and the last meeting it was said that these gentlemen should get some input from the fire chief and from the police chief in regards to the access of that street and how it will be accessed and whether it's safe. And I haven't heard anything said here about whether they were even contacted. That's the first thing. Second thing is, They had someone else up here, the last meeting, a nice lady individual, who said that the safety, they felt the 110 feet was adequate for safety. I disagree. So now they come back with another traffic person who says they don't use adequate, they use appropriate. We still disagree. Okay? It's not appropriate. And what they're trying to say about the traffic being there, they don't see it. I was up in my room today, now that everything's cleared and put down, and I could look and see the traffic going back and forth, and they're not going 15, and they're not going to go 15, whether they change the intersection or not. That's not going to happen, okay? There are no sidewalks there. So now you're going to have a street with kids coming out of that street, children on bicycles that are going to want to access Killen and Fairlawn to play with their friends, that are going to be walking on Grebe Road, where you've had several bus accidents, several car accidents, because the road is too narrow. So you're going to have children walking on that road with their bicycles and their scooters, accessing Killen and Fairlawn. Listen, I was a law enforcement officer for a long time. And I'm here to tell you that I've seen fatalities, plenty of them, kids. And I don't want to see that happen here. And I'm fearful of that happening here. This is not the same kind of intersection as he's saying about, well, there's less than 150 feet at the town hall. Different intersections, different sections of town, different places, okay? You cannot ride through the center of town doing 25, 35, 45 miles an hour. You can on Old Durham Road and Grebe Road and coming down that way. And it's done all the time. We are all witnesses of that. Every one of us here. And probably every one of us here has come close to getting into an accident, pulling out on Killen Road because we can't see left or right, and we've had to slam on our brakes. So they can do all the studies and bring all the people here that they want, and it's not going to make a difference. And I just want to say to this commission that I trust all of you based on all of what I heard last time we were here, and asking them to do what they should do. I don't remember who it was that asked them to go to the police chief and to the fire chief. I haven't heard the results. I haven't heard any opinions from those guys, and they should have some input into this. And I'm going to tell you, I've been at fires in West Haven on streets that are legal streets that fire engines can't turn down the street because there's a car parked too close to the corner, or the street's not wide enough, and they've had to like actually have cars towed while people's houses are burning. So there are a million things that could happen here to take into consideration. And I think the safety thing should not be called adequate or appropriate when it comes to people's lives. So I would like to see the police chief and the fire chief, someone talk to them and find out what the deal is and what their interpretation of this project is. There's nothing against, listen, like my friend said the first time she was up here, we knew there was going to be some kind of development there when this gentleman sold his property. This is not what should be there. This is not what should be there. And I'm going to tell you, I would not want to be the people that approve this and then have something dreadfully fatal happen and have that on my shoulders. I would not want to do that. Thank you.
Just if I could just ask everybody in the audience, after a speaker gets done, please hold the clapping. It's this is not an entertainment venue, so I appreciate people are have opinions one way or another, but let's just limit the audience participation. But getting back to you, we do have a memo that was noted to the correspondence from the fire chief. In my discussion with, or brief comments with our town engineer, our town engineer did review the chief did review with our town engineer her comments with respect to the traffic in her recommendation, and he concurred with that. So the police chief has been brought into the loop, if you would, and has made his comments with respect to this application.
Well,
And as far as the
we
the
should have
fire-
heard that, right?
Well, it was noted for the record. I mean, his memo
Why
was...
can't, why can't that be read to here?
Well, because I'm not going to read all of this.
Well, not
I
all
mean,
of
there's-
it, but
yeah,
you
yeah,
just
but yeah,
summarized.
Yeah, but we can't be selective as far as what we read and what we don't read. There was recommendation made by our town engineer, and I guess if our town engineer would just like to just briefly comment what her recommendation was, if you would, please.
I could also clarify the police chief's involvement.
Sure, if you would,
the police
please.
chief is the local traffic authority for the town of Wallingford, and I do serve as his staff. So we do discuss traffic matters, and there is a memo in the record that stated his opinion after reviewing my memo. I don't want to quote the memo. I don't have it in front of me, but that is my understanding, is that he agreed with my findings. And I hope that somebody would correct me if that's incorrect.
The other thing I
Thank you.
wanted to bring up at this meeting is that the people, which is one of me, who abut this property that he owns, we are supposed to receive a letter informing us of this meeting, and none of us have received a letter prior to this meeting. So I just wanted that on the record. That's all.
Good. Thank you.
Okay?
As far as Mr. Pagini, notification?
Yes, I have all of the certificates of mailing.
It was for the first
There's a
meeting,
copy,
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, so all those notifications have been, they've been sent out and been acknowledged, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, good. At this point in time, we'll entertain additional comments. And, yes,
My name is Carly Vicino. I live at 42
excuse me,
Fairlawn-
if you could just pull that down just a little bit farther so I can hear your voice, that'd be great.
My name is Carly Vicino. I live at 42 Fairlawn Drive. My brother and I and my friends play on Fairlawn and Killen. We are scared to play.
Oh, and excuse me, you're going to have to introduce yourself also, please.
My name is Piper White. I live on 32 Fairlawn Drive. We are scared to play on the street because cars cut down to the road to get to Durham Road. Please think about the kids safely first, especially the kids that live on Durham Road who wait for the school bus and have to cross the street to play with their friends. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, other members who would like to speak, please raise their hands.
I know the gentleman with the traffic.
Name and address,
Oh,
please.
I'm sorry. Karen Napolitano, 42 Fairlawn Drive.
Thank you.
I know the gentleman with the traffic study that he did. I had said this last time. You do not live in our neighborhood. Okay, you could say everything you want about traffic, 15 miles an hour. It is not going to happen. As far as Mr. Wiedemann doing it for safety, I'm sorry, Mr. Wiedemann is doing it to make a big profit, not for the safety of the people. Now, I don't understand if the police chief and the fire chief agree on that, how come they have not come to any of the meetings? They should be here. You're talking about a fire hazard. He's saying that the fire truck could swing around even if there's cars.
Because these individuals had given memos to the commission indicating what their opinion is. You know, the police chief has been in consultation with our town engineer and discussed this matter and then gave his opinion.
They think about like snow on the side of the road. They plow the sides of the road. I don't understand how a fire truck, they have that big fire truck, one or whatever it is going to fit down that cul-de-sac and swing around. God forbid there is a fire. But again, it's a safety. That is, I know they're talking about fixing the intersection. How they're going to do that, I don't know. But it is a very bad safety issue. Actually, when I was coming home today, I saw on Durham and Killen, 2 cars must have passed because a truck, it had to be a truck, went up on the lawn and made a big hole in their lawn, probably trying to get away from the other car. But again, you people do not live in our neighborhood. You don't know what the traffic is. You could say all you want about the study. Sorry, but it's not going to work.
Thank you. And again, show of hands, because we're going to keep moving back. Yes, the gentleman right in front with the white shirt.
I'm a little taller. Michael Kaib, I live at 38 Fairlawn Drive, the corner lot. So I get to see a lot of the traffic issues. I understand we're in phase 9. Fairlawn Farms was a very large development over time, 6 years of development that brought Fairlawn Farms in. When they opened up the cul-de-sac in phase 9, which we all abut up against the property, the amount of traffic that shifted onto Killen and Fairlawn Farms, I'm on the corner, and all of the people in the neighborhood know me because I'm the guy who's outside working all the time. I've noticed a significant increase in the traffic on that. And additionally, because Grebe Road is so narrow down by the pump station, that a lot of people avoid that and come down Fairlawn and come down Killen Road to avoid that traffic. So I've got a couple notes that I was listening to because I wasn't here last week. But this new development is a cul-de-sac with 13 homes. It's unlikely that these people are actually going to have birthday parties and things like that with these new families, with new babies, new families and things like that. You said it was unlikely there would be a lot of cars on the road. Come to our neighborhood, come to any neighborhood, when young kids are having neighborhood parties and birthday parties and things like that. 12 cars in the morning. That's assuming there's only one worker in the family. I can tell you right now, to live in this neighborhood, live in this town, live in the state of Connecticut, both parents need to work. So both mothers and fathers will be leaving to go to work, very likely taking their children to preschool and or school. We have a great school system here. Not every kid rides the bus, not every kid goes to the local schools. Old construction versus existing streets are grandfathered in. So we're talking apples and oranges when you're talking about the town hall and being 100 feet, 50 feet to the driveway, not a development that subdivision. And the rules apply. So we want to do better than we have done in the past. And we want to follow the rules and the statutes that are on the books, not the ones that were here 350 years ago when they discovered or created our town. Unsafe, you're comparing circumstances now to a situation will be aggravated when we have another 13 homes, 26 vehicles, just easy estimate. Most of the people in our neighborhoods have both working parents. And how about the character of the neighborhood? We're all on half-acre lots. We have a character in our neighborhood that is expected, and when you cram 13 homes into an area that's only 3.5 acres, that's a very significant change in our neighborhood. I understand. We want to have affordable housing. This isn't the place for it. That's it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And again, going back, yes, this young lady also. And then the gentleman next to her, I believe, also would like to speak, and then we'll move farther back.
Michelle Wooding, 1131 Durham Road. There's a lot of safety concerns, and I think we've covered most of them. What I haven't heard is we're in a watershed area, and all of us have to have our property. We can't have gas cans on our grass, and it's we will get fined. We get checked every year. You're going to cram 13 more houses in a watershed area, which is a health concern as far as I'm concerned. The second thing is most of us, have wells on Durham Road and Grebe Road. We are really, really worried about what's going to happen to those wells, and we want to be protected from that. And the other thing I wanted to say, sorry, I'm very nervous. I don't do this very often. Sunwood initially tried to cram this through using administrative approval, But luckily, we found out about it. He also did this at North Farms, and people were not happy. Let me just say one thing to Sunwood. Some things might be allowed, but they're not right. And what Sunwood is doing is just icky. It's wrong. It's just wrong.
If I could just clarify one thing, I don't believe Sunwood tried to put this through through administrative approval, because it couldn't go through administrative approval on a 840.
It was inland wetlands. That's
Excuse me?
where he tried to do it. And none of us knew anything about it, and all of a sudden we heard little, sayings about it. That's what bothered me.
Okay, I understand
What
that.
bothered me.
Okay. And again, the gentleman next to her.
This is the first time I've had to move a mic up. No, it's too far. So I spoke with Jim. I'm going to give my address in a minute, but I had a video from somebody. We agreed that we wouldn't play the video, but I would read her letter. So if I could state her name and address first and read her comments.
Well, why don't you state your name and address, and then indicate
Okay.
the name and address of the persons you're reading the memo from, if
All
you
right.
would,
My
please.
name is John Wooding. My address is 1131 Durham Road. Her name is Sarah Gorman, and she's at 12 Trailside Drive. So I'm going to read her statement first, if it's okay. By the way, another reason I didn't want to do a video is because I was afraid I'd pull up the wrong one and you'd see my mom dancing to St. Louis Woman or something. So I think it's in all of our best interests that we didn't do a video, or worse. So this is hers. My name is Sarah Gorman, and I live at 12 Trailside Drive, part of the Fairlawn Farms development. I wanted to come to this meeting in person, but I have a 2.5-year-old who needs me for bedtime. So I am writing this letter instead. Thank you, John Wooding, for agreeing to read this on my behalf. I am a proud Wallingford resident, homeowner, wife, mother, and I have been a nurse for 12 years. My husband is a lineman. My husband and I purchased our home in late 2019 with the dream of building a family here. We were not familiar with Grebe Road or how dangerous it is until we began living here. Grebe Road is a rural area and zoned as such for a reason, specifically the portion running parallel to I-91, where Sunwood plans to develop 13 homes on less than 4 acres of land. Cars are unable to safely pass each other when moving in opposite directions, as the road is not wide enough to accommodate this type of traffic. I avoid Grebe Road when my son is in the car, as I have almost been hit by other drivers, delivery trucks, etc., anytime someone is coming from the opposite direction. Nobody follows the speed limit. Everyone is in a hurry and flies down the road. Not to mention, there is no visibility pulling right or left onto Grebe Road from Killen Road without literally pulling out into the street halfway. 13 homes being built here at a minimum equates to 26 vehicles traveling down Grebe Road and also through our neighborhood as a cut-through. And in a multi-generational living and teenage drivers to those 26 vehicles, and you have a recipe for disaster. Sunwood is building under 830G as a loophole to build as many houses as possible to maximize their profit. This development will provide the minimum threshold for 830G to satisfy the regulation. Nobody in Fairlawn Farms or the surrounding area would be here right now fighting for the safety of our neighborhood and the sanctity of living in a rural zone if Sunwood planned to build 3 to 4 colonials on this property. What is truly fascinating is a week after the property sold, I called Sunwood and spoke to them directly. They promised me up and down that 3 to 4 gorgeous colonials, 2,500 to 3,000 square feet, would be built here to keep in line with the neighborhood behind. So what changed? I think we all know what to answer that. Greed. Sunwood does not live here, nor does their attorney or traffic engineer. It is very easy to say nobody travels over 25 miles an hour, that this won't impact us, but that is not true, and if they lived here, they'd know. If they lived here, they'd care. If they lived here, they would not be proposing this type of development in this area. Growth is good, development is good, when done safely. There is nothing safe about this, from the proximity of the entrance to Kyle Court to the stop sign, to how narrow the road is and its inability to allow for safe passing of traffic, plows, emergency vehicles, and every single thing my amazing neighbors have mentioned that I may not have. Planning and zoning, thank you for your time regarding this matter. I know you would do the right thing for all of us who live here now and those who will live here in the future. So that's from Sarah. Now, be patient with me as I mention my statement. So again, I'm John Wooding, 1131 Durham Road. I want to thank you all again for your service to the town. I know you put in countless hours in your roles with P&Z. Many, many years ago, my father, John Marshall Wooding, was the president of the former C.F. Wooding Company. That construction company was started in 1866 in the town of Wallingford and lasted until the mid-1990s. 1866, by the way, was a year after Abraham Lincoln died. That company built many of the houses in the center of town, as well as commercial property, including the library wine bar and the old Wells Fargo building. I also believe Steve Cervoni is actually living in one of the houses my father built. One of the characteristics that my father had, according to many of the old timers that I've talked about, or that I've talked to, was his integrity. That the success in the building, the quality of the homes, the commercial buildings, without compromising that integrity. He cared deeply for the town of Wallingford, as I do also. The proposal for 1136 is a perfect example of a contractor using the Connecticut statute under 830G to cram 13 houses into a 3.5-acre parcel by doing the bare minimum required by the state of Connecticut with 4 houses. I strongly disagree with some of the assumptions made by Sunwood's traffic study and many of their arguments. By the way, our engineer, who couldn't be here tonight, actually was able to secure the information that was provided at some point, but we just got it today at about 4 o'clock, and he would like to respond, but he couldn't be here tonight. In that memo regarding the 250 feet, they are comparing Kyle Court to a driveway, saying it doesn't matter. There is a substantial difference between a road with 13 houses, 25 to 40 cars, and 2 to 3 houses with 4 to 6 cars, not to mention delivery trucks, landscaping equipment, etc. Also, they argue that 85% of those driving are driving less than 25 miles an hour is just not an accurate statement. The traffic study was done in March over a period of about approximately 5 days. It was right before Tilcon opened, and Tilcon adds a lot of traffic to that area. People going back and forth to work. It's a big employer just out 68, as you all know. When the traffic study was done, the lines that count the cars and the speed of the cars was very near the intersection, so it does not take into consideration the speed of cars approaching that intersection. And I think that's a very, very important point. That nullifies, in my opinion, the whole traffic study on Grebe Road. Driving down either Durham or Grebe, well, actually, ask you, drive down either Durham or Grebe, and when you're going your normal speed, look down at your speedometer and see how fast you're going. And I think it would surprise you that you're not going under 25 miles an hour. Also, if you know the area, the bridge over 91, people come flying across that from going east to west, well over 40 miles an hour many times. And you want to talk about the sight line and stuff, I don't care what you do to that intersection. Those cars are coming at 40 miles an hour. You get somebody's grandfather or grandmother pulling out from Grebe Road, and you've got a potentially dangerous situation. Don't even look at the examples in the center of town. I don't even know how you could compare that to this area. That's a joke. The police department, yeah, there's a driveway right there, and there's a road near it, but there's also sidewalks, and you can't even go over 20 miles an hour there. I'm almost done. They mentioned fire apparatus turning around in Kyle Court, but one of the things that was mentioned last meeting is that there was a notation or some concern by the fire department about accessing Kyle Court. Didn't even talk about that tonight, the access to file court coming in from a certain direction, bringing those trucks around, not even including getting around the loop. Also, to say that it's already, I missed part of the comment, but there's something about, well, it's already kind of, like traffic's already a concern, we're going to approve the area. Throw 40 cars in your neighborhood and see what it does. Mr. Wiedemann bought this property knowing what the P&Z regulations were. He knew it ahead of time. So at no point can he say, I've got to develop my land. Yes, please do. Put a couple of nice houses in there, we'll all be happy. Please, for the sake of all the residents in the town of Wallingford, especially that area, especially the children, one casualty, and none of us are going to be sleeping at night. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Other members of the public on the right side here. And anyone else on the right side before I move over to the left side? Okay, sir, we'll take you, then we'll move over. Yes,
Gary
name and
Kozlowski.
address. I would ask all the speakers to, if you have your comments, kind of more new comments, if you would, try not to repeat what other people may have said. I'd ask you to at least consider that.
Well, we just want to bring it up.
Oh, just
my
so
name
your
is
name-
Gary Kozlowski, 1110 Durham Road, Wallingford. The reason why everybody's commenting on certain things is because they're very concerned about them. So as that continues to happen, everybody's going to bring up the same thing, as safety concerns is a big issue. Last Wednesday, me traveling home, 5:15, 5:20 at night, coming west or south, wherever you want it to be, coming up Durham Road over 91 Bridge, making the left-hand turn to continue on Durham Road. I had someone swerve over to try to cut into Grabe Road, and I almost get hit. We talk about this safety and how people drive. They don't look, they're just going to turn and point, and that's exactly what happens there all the time. We've seen it time and time again. We live there most of our lives, most of us. Wells are a big thing of our concern. We all have wells in that area. That's a big concern of our issues. What happens now, what happens later. What do we have to control it? The third thing I wanted to bring up is just the area. Does this fit into the rest of the housing in our area? The development against what is there currently. It doesn't fit our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, moving over here to the left side. I'm sorry. Sir, we'll pick you up, and then we'll move over to the left side of the center aisle. You believe.
Ryan Delaney, 1191 Durham Road. So it was brought up before about the wells. Is anybody thought about the concern of when he starts doing construction, what's going to happen to everybody's well in this area? I haven't heard anything about that, and that is the safety issues if something happens to everybody's well. The other thing is the speed limit on Durham Road is 30 miles an hour. It brings up the same point everybody else is bringing up, but it's a hazard there. And the other thing I'd like to add is if Mr. Wiedemann was so concerned about affordable housing in Wallingford, he could have added one more house to his lot on Main Street. Thank you.
And now we'll move over to the left side. On the left side of the center, anyone that would like to comment? Seeing none and moving over, yes, gentleman here, please.
Good evening. Thank you for letting us talk. My name is Scott Gray. I live at 14 Oxford Trail right here in Wallingford. And I live in Wallingford because I like Wallingford. I like the way the town is laid out. It's not an urban area. It's not an inner city area. It's a very rural area where people like to live and enjoy their lifestyle. And mostly all of us live in Wallingford because we like Wallingford, and we don't like a lot of things being shoved down our throats. We don't like irresponsible development. We don't like pollution. We don't like congestion. We don't like proposals that make absolutely no sense. And in my opinion, this is the most ridiculous proposal to ever come down the pike for a rural neighborhood in the town of Wallingford to take a little parcel of property and cram over a dozen properties in there. It's absolutely ridiculous. If anyone who thinks this is a good idea live there, I would say you guys need a checkup from the neck up. So you can cite all kinds of studies about traffic and response from emergency vehicles. We can talk about wells. We can talk about mail being delivered. We can talk about snow plows. Why don't we just boil it down to one basic element? Does this make sense? Is this a good proposal? In my opinion, and I probably am speaking for the people that are sitting in this room, and there's probably hundreds of people in the town of Wallingford who would agree that this is the most ridiculous thing that anyone could think is worth proposing. You're going to take 3 acres and cram a dozen homes in there? That's just insane. So we like to live in Wallingford. We don't want to live in an urban quadrant with multiple houses piled on top of one another. This is not New Haven. This is not Grand Avenue. It's not Brooklyn. It's Wallingford. This is ridiculous. Who thinks this is a good idea besides the people who want to make money off of it? It's just absolutely ridiculous. So I ask you guys, would you want this baloney in your yard, in your backyard? I bicycle up that road when I come to the library, when I come to the center of town. It's a busy spot. You got to keep your head up. You got to be aware of what's going on, like most places. But how in the world is this going to do anything but make things worse? How is this in the world going to do anything but cause problems? How is this a good idea? It is just astronomical to think that anybody thinks that this is a good idea. It's absolutely ridiculous. So,
thank you, sir. I think you've made your point.
Well, there's probably a few more things that I could say, but I think I've made my point. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other members of the public that would like to comment on the application? Yes, the individual way back there. And after this individual, is there anyone else before I bring it back to the applicant and the commission?
Hi, my name is Kim Math. I reside at 49 Fairlawn Drive. I could just say ditto about all the safety things that were pointed out, particularly on Grebe Road. I run on Grebe Road. On our way here tonight, I almost got T-boned on Grebe Road because of somebody coming and the entrance from Killen is not clear, and it will be the same from Kyle Court. Also, because I was just thinking about this, as you have people making lefts off Kyle Court and people making rights off of Killen, you're going to have people going head-on into each other because the road is not big enough for 2 cars to pass right there. I took umbrage at one of the statements of the attorney who said we were saying that it's safe, it's not safe, but it's safe enough for us. and not others. And that's not true. What you should be hearing tonight is that it's not safe, period. And adding, and I'm going to add to Mr. Kibe's count because I'm sure some of those people who buy those houses will have kids who drive to school. So now you're looking at 3 cars per household. So potentially 39, 40 cars coming out of that spot. They will be working parents. That will all be around the same time. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, seeing no other members of the public who would like to comment on the application, I'll bring it back to the applicant. If the applicant would like to make some further comments or address some of the issues that the public has
Okay,
made.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tim Hollister for the record. And first, I'm going to say I'm going to take your cue from earlier. I'm not going to get into a debate with the neighbors. They have their views, we have ours. We're doing our jobs, and we'll all be respectful. So I just want to point out, as I sit here, I don't know that we have anything more substantive to say. I think we're in a position to close the hearing. I obviously don't know what the commission is going to do, but I will make this request. You've heard from the neighbors several times their request that our proposal is inappropriate, ridiculous, whatever word you want to use. In your discussion, if you agree with that, we'd like to hear what you think is appropriate, because probably this applicant will be back at some point. This is developable land, assuming we can get past the 250-foot rule, so we would welcome your thoughts as to if you're going to vote no, what is appropriate on this site. Not surprisingly, I will reiterate my position on behalf of the applicant that this is not an unsafe proposal. It's been, people say, well, we don't live in the neighborhood. I've tried throughout my adult life to live in more than one place. My wife disagreed, but the fact is that traffic engineering is something that can be assessed objectively. Mr. Vertucci and his company have been out on the site many times. They're very familiar with it, but that's what traffic engineering is, and I believe his opinion is well documented, and his opinion is that this is a safe proposal. So I will just finish there. Again, thank you for your time and your attention, and unless you have any questions, I think we're done. Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much, sir. I guess I'd bring it back to the commission to have some discussion amongst commission members. We've, heard from the applicant. We've had quite a bit of correspondence from the applicant. We've had correspondence from our town departments, various town departments, and we've heard from the public. So I guess I would ask various commission members what comments they may or may not have on the application, before I look to close the public hearing and take any action on the application. So I'll start with Mr. Cohan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the issue we're dealing with is basically safety and the discrepancy between the traffic engineer for the applicant and the comments and opinion of our town engineer. I don't normally get into the weeds and some of this stuff, but tonight I think I have to get into the weeds a little bit as far as this traffic study. So the applicant references, Connecticut statutes, and they also reference the National Association of City Transportation Officials. So I spent the weekend and today looking through, what they do. And basically their mission is to build cities with safe, sustainable, accessible, and equitable transportation choices. That's their mission. What they do is describe surface transportation in urban areas, and they focus on biking, bus transportation, light rail, bike shareable establishments, and freight. I went through their Urban Street Design Guide. And their number one issue with intersections, and I think this is where we're having problems, is that visibility and sight distance are parameters central to the inherent safety of intersections, driveways, and other potential conflict points. That's what they say is extremely important in their street design guide. So that fits into, the issues we're having with this intersection with Grebe and Durham Road. So reading from the applicants, and this is the other traffic engineer who was here last month. Oh, God, I misplaced. Oh, turned it over. Basically, the intersection was designed with a 15-mile-an-hour design speed was used in the site distance analysis. And, I'm not a traffic engineer, so if I misstate something, please correct me, and I'm going to try and make this as I understand it. So again, the applicant used a 15-mile-an-hour design speed in this calculation that 110 feet was sufficient. So that leads me to the police chiefs, not the police chiefs, but one of the police traffic persons did a stat box results for Grebe Road. And I tried to make heads or tails of this graph. And basically I got hung up on, the speeds that are referenced. The NATCO specification is to use target speeds for intersections rather than design speeds. And you use design speeds, which is 15 miles an hour. So I'm trying to figure out from this chart what the actual target speed is. And I've got an 85 speed percentile of 29 miles per hour. And then the average speed over the limit is 33.7 miles an hour. So I am assuming that the average speed over the limit is really the target speed. Now that may be an incorrect assumption, but the NATCO regulations also talk about the 85 percentile. And again, that's almost twice what your design speed limit is. So basically, I'm having a difficult time believing that at 29, or maybe you can answer this question. At a 29 mile per hour speed limit or a 33.7 mile an hour speed limit, is that 110 feet sight line good enough?
So first of all,
Have I made any, misstatements in?
Sure. So I just want to clarify the measured speed.
Excuse me, if you could just
Sorry.
pull the microphone a little closer.
Apologize for that. I'm Mark Fertucci again for the record. So we conducted a speed study with an automatic traffic recorder count, which is basically a tube counter that was placed on Grebe Road. It was installed just north of the proposed Kyle Court intersection location. So that's where you need to measure to determine adequate sight distance, because that's going to be the speed the cars are approaching from the north on Grebe Road. That 85th percentile speed was 25 miles per hour. Now, the 85th percentile, or the design speed, that is the speed It's the industry standard. CONDOT uses it. FHWA uses it. It's a design standard for what you design a roadway by and for what site distances are measured in accordance with. So that 25 mile per hour southbound speed of approaching vehicles from the north on Grebe Road is what we're measuring our site distances based off of. And based on that, on the requirement for a 25 mile per hour design speed, we need 280 feet site distance, and we have in excess of that looking north on Grebe. Looking in the other direction, we're looking towards the Durham Road intersection 110 feet away. We did not put an automatic traffic recorder there because we can't get accurate counts when it's right on top of the intersection. You get vehicles slowing down, stopping on it, coming up with zero measurements and things like that. So what we're saying is when we realign the intersection, and we've designed it for a maximum turn speed of 15 miles per hour, there's not going to be a vehicle coming out of that intersection from Durham once it's realigned at more than 15 miles per hour. It's unless they're turning on two wheels, they're crossing the center line, they're driving erratically. The intersection's being designed to tighten it up, to tee it up, and reduce those turning speeds. So the site distances looking to the right out of Kyle Court towards Durham Road, we're basing off of a 15 mile per hour speed. That being said, we have adequate site distance looking south to Durham Road, and in both directions up Durham Road, the site distance is well in excess of that. So we're confident there are sufficient intersection site distances that exceed that criteria in the DOT Highway Design Manual. This graph with the Wallingford Police Department speed data, they've recorded an 85th percentile speed of closer to 30. I don't know where this was taken. It says the location is undefined, but if it's anywhere but right at or just north of the site driveway, it's not at all applicable to this situation because we're measuring site distances at Kyle Court right at that point. Site distance requirements fluctuate as you go up and down a road based on the instantaneous travel speed at any point along the road. So these speeds are what's occurring right at the intersection with where Kyle Court would be. That's what our site distance requirements need to be, and that's stipulated in the Highway Design Manual. It's industry standard. We're going off of 85th percentile design speeds and speeds right at the location of the intersection. I don't know if that cleared that up or made it muddier, but
Well, not really, because you don't have data to support, that intersection. You're relying on a manual, and you did not collect the statistics that show the actual through traffic there.
I can't collect a speed coming out of an intersection that it's going to be reconstructed. That's the point. We could measure it now, but it's a skewed intersection. So your left turning speeds, they may be closer to 20 than the 15 that they'll be, when it's realigned. So that's why we're making the recommendation to realign the intersection. It's a safety recommendation, and it will make it safer not just for developments of this driveway, but for some of the issues we've been hearing from the public tonight. Would benefit from an intersection realignment such as this to lower those turning speeds through the intersection.
But again, there is no data for that 110-foot sight line that is there. So I'd like to ask the town engineer, because she's seen this memo, and this was on Grebe Road, posted on a utility pole on Grebe Road, approximately 100 feet from the intersection with Durham Road, and comprises data for both directions of travel. So, would this data, support or not support that 110-foot sightline visibility that, we're really wrestling with? I mean, certainly the 250 feet is out of the question, but...
So there's a couple things that I think are maybe getting a little confused. So what they do have proposed is about 110-foot intersection spacing distance,
Right.
right? And then they also provide some plans that show the sight line from, for vehicles that are leaving Kyle Court and turning left or right. And so those are two separate things. Off the top of my head, I believe the sight line that was required was about 225 feet, both looking right and left. Looking left, the plans that they submitted showed that they do achieve that. Looking right, they did have to cut through Lot 13, which is the one where the detention basin is proposed. Because of that, we requested it, and they did show on the plans an extended sightline easement that encompasses the entire sightline triangle.
So with those changes, you know, it's still your opinion that, you know, this intersection still remains unsafe as they're proposing?
So my memo outlines the what I believe is a public safety hazard for the intersection spacing distance of the approximately 110 feet.
Right.
My memo does not mention a deficient sightline distance. I do believe that they achieved it in their submitted plans for the sightline for the cars exiting Kyle Court, turning left or right. Does that help to clarify at all? I know there's a couple measurements that are getting thrown around, so I want to make sure that it's clear.
So I think that, you know, basically those are my questions. Again, I don't think the, you know, 15-mile-an-hour design speed was appropriate. You know, again, based on some of the references that were brought up in the applicant's memo, and I still think that, you know, that target speed, you know, is still a safety question in my humble opinion. So I think that's, let me check one more thing, Mr. Chairman. Okay, I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. Other commission members, Mr. Fitzsimmons.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And that was a in the weeds discussion because I couldn't follow some of the math. But I appreciate that. Let me just, this is our second meeting on this application, which the applicant advised that was first applied to the town back in January, but this is only our second time before this commission regarding this. I want to be very clear and on the record, Wallingford needs more non-market rate housing, and we have put in place regulations such as the incentive housing zone, which is downtown 10 years ago this month. We also put in rental housing opportunity district in November of 2014, and the housing opportunity rental district in January of 27. All of these zoning regulations and areas were created to increase diversity of Wallingford's housing stock per the Connecticut General Statute 8-33. And all of them use the term affordable housing and/or housing for moderate income households. What we are discussing here is 4 affordable lots in a 13-lot subdivision. Based upon the information that's been presented and all the papers I've reviewed and comments, I believe that this development will compromise local safety and health. I think the insufficient sight lines, based upon the opinions that have been presented by the town professional staff, are key and outweigh the need for 4 additional non-market rate houses in Wallingford. Emergency vehicle access is a significant concern of mine, and I think the idea that this would potentially create an unsafe traffic conditions when emergency vehicles need to respond to a situation. I think I would like to address one member of the public. I think it was our first young lady who spoke this evening. She had said somebody, very young ladies, thank you. Very young lady who commented on the request for the last meeting And it was me who asked for comments from the fire chief and the police chief. And in the essence of time, I will paraphrase to you the letter from the chief of police. And he makes reference to the memo we received, but he says, and paraphrasing, "I am in agreement that the deficiency does pose a vehicular safety issue and that the conditions of Grieve Road corridor in the immediate area of the driveway of the proposed development pose a detriment to the safety conditions in the area." And that was dated Friday. We also received a memorandum from the acting fire chief, Samuel Wilson, which refers to federal fire regulations. But the chief's letter, and the chief is Wallingford's legal traffic authority, his memo to us and to the commission was quite clear. I think, part of the challenge is, and I've been on the commission for a few years, is does the need for non-market rate housing outweigh the public safety and issue? And I think in this scenario, at this location, it does not. The public safety is the primary issue here, not for 4 additional houses that would be non-market rate. I think part of the challenge for me, forgive me, is, and I would like to publicly thank both the town planner, the town engineer, the town attorney, the fire chief, the acting fire chief, and the police chief. Because as I said at the last meeting, we rely on input from the town officials. Our town officials, none of them are in agreement on this particular application, which is, as I said last month, highly unusual. A couple of reasons for the comments that I'm making are, the existing site conditions, the separation distance is, quote, well short of the town standard and presents a safety hazard for vehicular traffic. The proposed design increases the number of decisions motorists must make while traveling through intersections and reduces safety. The close proximity of the proposed road, Kyle Court, to the existing intersection of Durham Road does not allow drivers to safely maneuver a right turn onto Grieve Road immediately following by a left turn onto Kyle Court. The proposed intersection does not allow for, and in turn does not encourage safe usage of the road. The right turning movement from Durham Road onto Grieve Road is 17 feet. Due to the short spacing, stopped cars turning left onto Kyle Court would also be susceptible to rear-end collisions from drivers making a right-hand turn onto Grieve Road from Durham Road, as they would not have the adequate time to see the stopped car and apply their brakes to stop in a safe manner. One of the things that I discussed at the last meeting was proposed Kyle Court is a public roadway. It's not private, they're proposing a public roadway, and be the sole access for these 13 units. The applicant has asked us that we treat it as a driveway due to low speed and traffic volumes, but it's not a driveway. It's a public road, and they are proposing a public road. I think I know others want to speak. I do think that this application does pose a significant risk to the public safety and health. I would be clear, and I want to be on record, and I've said it every time, and every time we have an application, we need more non-market rate housing. But this is 4 lots in a 13 lot, and I just think that the safety issues for the town that are presented do not outweigh the need for non-market rate housing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzsimmons. Other commission members, anyone else? Mr. Allison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had a quick dive into the weeds after Commissioner Cohen's comments, and I was looking at the site box numbers versus the ATR numbers, and one of the discrepancies, other than the 25 miles per hour average versus the 29 miles per hour average, was the total vehicle count. And the applicant's total vehicle count had about 483 vehicles per day on it, but the site box, when I did the math, had about 950 vehicles per day. That's a drastic difference when it comes to sample size and when computing the statistics. I'm not sure what I'm looking at. And so I want to know if our town engineer can explain the difference in the sample size, because she'd probably be familiar with that.
Yeah, when we reviewed the stat box information from the police department, we noticed an anomaly. There's an anomaly occurs around overnight between April 11th to April 12th. There's a large spike you could see, and that's total vehicle count. And so what I personally did is I did not use this information to make a determination about volume on the roadway. I used this information for the average speed in the 85th percentile speed.
Okay, so
Does that help?
Yeah, so this spike in the graph has been omitted as an outlier from your analysis.
For me personally, yes,
Okay.
for the total vehicle count.
Thank you. That's very helpful because something didn't look right. One other thing, I did want to thank Mr. Giuliano for this. This was very helpful as far as the turning radius and showing the cars versus the fire truck in here. And I appreciate our fire marshal's review of your turning analysis. This was one of the questions I brought up last meeting, and it's very helpful for me to see this. That being said, I think it's also helpful to know that our chief of police also saw this in creating his memorandum, and our town engineer also saw this in coming to his conclusions. 830G is an extremely restrictive statute. I've said this before on 830G applications where we cannot, as somebody in the public said, does this make sense? We can't. We don't have the ability to decide that. It doesn't matter whether it makes sense or not. What matters is what the statute says and whether or not public safety is, and balancing public safety and the need for affordable housing are in line. And in our analysis and in the record that we're looking, I see in multiple places our town experts telling us that this is not a safe application. And I see the applicant's analysis, and as Commissioner Fitzsimmons mentioned, for non-market rate or affordable rate houses being placed. So I think it's our job as the commission to balance under 830G to say, what is the risk to public safety versus the benefit to the town of Wallingford for 4 affordable housing units? And in running that balance and looking at the facts and the opinions from all of the experts that we've received, I agree with Commissioner Fitzsimmons. This is not an application that I believe would provide safety to our public. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Allison. Other commission members? Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Rivard.
Thank you. Concur with everything that's been said thus far. I won't be voting tonight, but I feel compelled to make my comments considering the significance of this application. I feel compelled to make my comments considering the significance of this particular application. I did have the benefit of being here last time, and I mentioned one fact remains that today at this property you have maybe 4 citizens living there. We're going to go up to 10x, maybe 15x based on the density of these homes. And I also mentioned last time we don't discount the comments made that by the public and the applicant that there's risks inherent today in that intersection. But irrespective of what the design is, by putting 10x the number of citizens living there locally, we're disproportionately increasing the significant risk that already exists. And there hasn't been an adjustment to the site plan, although it was recommended, to see if you could resolve the concerns of our own town staff to resolve the requirements. I'm an aerospace engineer, so I'm not a traffic engineer, so I recognize the possibility of having 2 engineers with different conclusions, and I respect it because it happens all the time, because what we're doing is we're defining technical requirements to try to best encapsulate a reality, and unfortunately, reality is messy, especially in this situation. And for me personally, it doesn't feel like there's enough margin of safety built into this plan, especially considering that half of that increase of population could just be children, like the two young ladies who so eloquently spoke here today. So those are my comments, Mr. Secretary. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, as far as my comments, I don't want to kind of echo everything that everyone else has said, but I think Mr. Fitzsimmons made it very clear that, you know, this town has provided, you know, several opportunities for below market, non-market rate housing, whatever we want to call that. And I think the town has been, you know, very receptive to that. I think the first I can remember probably 20 years ago, and I think it was Ed Laughlin, you know, was sitting at that table, made his first presentation about an affordable housing project. And just to digress, and the attorney for the applicant can maybe just answer this question for me. And I've always, it was the first question I asked Mr. Laughlin. We find, you know, applicants that come before us with affordable housing projects, and they, you know, want affordable housing, and they find there's a need for it, and there's really a long-term need for it. The statute always says 40 years, and the applicant, at least, and I've seen in the past, when I've asked them, well, why can't we make it in perpetuity? I always get, well, the statute's 40 years. And that always just made simply no sense to me, because we're always going to have a need for affordable housing, and it's probably only going to get better. And if we were at 10% today, and we had 10% of that roll off next year, we'd have to build another, 10% of that in order to get back to where we were. So we're just rolling off, you know, affordable housing at some point in time and saying, ooh, now I have to replace it. So that just never made any sense to me. It really has no bearing on your application, but as you're here, Mr. Hollister, and I know you've been involved with affordable housing for quite some time, I just don't get it.
Okay, well, Tim Hollister for the record, and I don't know if you remember, but you and I had this conversation in this room probably 20 years ago.
How many times? I'm a broken record. until I get a satisfactory, I won't say a satisfactory answer, until I get an answer that I can kind of accept. I'll probably keep asking it, so you have to bear with me.
I don't remember the name of the development, but I do remember what I said, and I'll say the same thing now. It was originally 20 years, then it became 30 years, then it became 40 years, and it's been 40 years since the year 2000. The decision of the second Blue Ribbon Commission in 1999-2000 to not make the restriction in perpetuity was the result of input that we had from Mr. King. I think his first name was Paul King. He was the chairman of the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority and was a member of our commission. And his advice was, and this is somebody who would know what he was talking about, is that when builders put a value on a proposed development, and more importantly, when lenders put a value on a proposed development, they're limiting the number of years that the affordability restriction will be in place creates a residual value. In other words, we know, and 40 years is a long time, but there will be a time when the restrictions will come off and the real estate will be unencumbered. Now, you can debate 20, 30, 40, 50 years, but the point is that Mr. King's advice was that keeping that value was of assistance to the underwriting that the lenders do, because they know that if they foreclose for some reason or they become the owners for some reason, that there is value at the end of the rainbow, if you will, that is not zero because it's not in perpetuity. And the commission has ceded to Mr. King's advice. So that is why it's not perpetuity. And that is one of the realities of the marketplace and lending in affordable housing and real estate development. If you have a restriction and it comes off at some point, there is a residual value that goes into your underwriting calculation. That's the answer.
I appreciate it, but I don't want to debate that with you, but I appreciate that, I appreciate that answer. But again, just getting back to, affordable housing, again, I think this commission has shown that we are certainly receptive to that. kind of piggybacking on what Mr. Allenson said, as far as with the 830G, it doesn't matter if, I think it's a nice project, a bad project. It should be, toward a transit-oriented district. It should be somewhere. The fact is, under the regulations, essentially, a project could be proposed at any location as long as it meets, certain requirements. And I think all the members of the commission understand that. As far as, the concerns with traffic, my wife and I, we built our home back in '86 on Grebe Road, so I've certainly seen a lot of changes on Grebe Road with respect to Fieldstone, Fairlawn Farms, and all of that. And I've seen the traffic that's generated by that. I will say, I don't have to wait 5 minutes to get out of my driveway because of traffic. There is a 30 mile an hour speed limit where I live, and in most of a portion of the traffic adheres to that. Others certainly go, beyond that speed limit at times. It doesn't happen all the time, but there's certain times where if I'm pulling out of my driveway, I'm looking left and right, and there's nobody there, and then all of a sudden I'm out of the driveway and there's a car in my rearview mirror. So I'm concerned, about, if it's the 1%, the 2%, the 5% of people that aren't adhering to, the speed limit. And those are the ones that, I become concerned about. I'm certainly familiar with, with Grebe Road and this portion of Grebe Road. Probably 5 days a week, I bike down it. I make a left onto Durham Road, go up to High Hill and go wherever and come back. So I fully appreciate the comments that the members of the public are making as far as the traffic there. But I put more emphasis on what our town staff says. I certainly respect, the traffic engineer, your traffic engineer. He's representing you and giving you in the commission, his best opinion. Our town staff, our town engineer, our police chief, they're representing the town, and they're looking at the situation and making their best determination as far as the traffic and what's being proposed at the intersection. And clearly, both of them has indicated that this is not a safe situation, not a safe intersection, and it presents a public safety hazard. And given that, that's who I would need to rely upon. And I just don't think that, we can provide safe neighborhoods without public safety and having, a public safety that doesn't, I'm sounding like someone rambling on here, that doesn't put the public at risk. So, given that, I would certainly concur with, other commission members that, in fact, this is an application because of the public safety issue, which certainly overrides, I think, the need for affordable housing, that, I would not be able to support this application. So again, I have not closed the public hearing, so certainly the applicant would have the opportunity, if they would like to make any, further comments on this prior to I close the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The only thing I'll do is to repeat my question before, which you don't have to answer, but I'm going to state it on the record. Then please tell us what you think would be safe and appropriate on this site.
Well, I can't speak for other commission members, but from my standpoint, what's being proposed does not present a safe situation. I think what needs to be presented on this site is something that addresses the public safety issue. That's probably as concise as I can be. I'm not going to, say I think you should put 3 houses on that, you should do this, you should do that. I think what you need to do is to take into consideration what's been stated by our town engineer, the opinion of our police chief, as far as the concerns that they have with respect to this application. To me, it's as simple as that, because I think what you've heard from all of the commission members is it's a public safety issue. How do you go about dealing with that for this particular property as far as what you want to put onto the property? That falls upon you to come back to the commission to see, in fact, if you can address that. Okay. Hopefully that answers your question.
I don't, I'm not going to debate you.
Good. I'm glad you didn't, because I never did well in debating. With that, if there are no further comments from any of the commission members, and the applicant obviously has completed his presentation, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we close the public hearing for application 102-24, Resubdivision 8-30G, Sunwood Development, 1136 Durham Road.
Second.
Second by Mr. Fitzsimmons, voting beginning with Mr. Cohen.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
And yes, now I'd entertain a motion on the application.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we deny the application for application 104-24, the request for re-subdivision and site plan approval from Sunwood Development Corporation for a 13-lot residential subdivision located at 1136 Durham Road on plans entitled the Cozy Corner, and 8-30G subdivision dated 1/24/24 and revised to 7/1/24 because of the public health and safety concerns regarding the intersections, separation distance, as outlined in a memo from the town engineer dated 8/6/24 and memo from the chief of police dated 8/9/24, because it is necessary to protect substantial public interest in the health and safety of the community.
Do we have a motion on the application? Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fitzsimmons, voting beginning with Mr. Cohen.
Yes to deny.
Yes.
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 And yes, the application has been denied. I do thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation. And with that, have a good evening.
Thank you.
Okay, this brings us to our next item of business. It's a special permit for excavation and filling of land, Lost and Found Ventures, LLC, 8 Mansion Road. And if we could just wait till the chambers clear out a bit.
Thank you. Okay, I think. Next one's, all right, no, that's fine. Just want to make sure it was unanimous, correct? Ooh, still got another big one. 9 o'clock.
I get the short, okay.
That's interesting.
We're just going to take a few moments here, waiting for Mr. Vinoy.
How many tail rays versus the
It's a very tough analysis. Yeah. They make it very.
All right, Mr. Allenson, if you would please read the legal notice for this application and note all correspondence for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Number 407-24, special permit request, Lost and Found Ventures LLC for excavation and filling of land, 8 Mansion Road, DD 40, Commercial District. We have correspondence to Kevin, email correspondence to Kevin Pagini, dated June 10th, 2024. We have an inspection report from the Wallingford Fire Department dated June 17th, 2024. Email correspondence to Kevin Pagini, Town Planner, dated July 2nd, 2024. Correspondence from Giuliano Associates to Kevin Pagini, Town Planner, dated July 1st, 2024. A on-site soil investigation and wetland delineation report from REMA Ecological Services, LLC, report dated November 25th, 2022. A photo of the signage, a second photo of the signage. Memorandum to Kevin Pagini, Town Planner, from Aaron O'Hare, Environmental Planner, dated August 2nd, 2024. The certification of mailings. Email correspondence from Christopher Giuliano to Kevin Pagini, Town Planner, dated August 6th, 2024. Correspondence from Kevin Pagini, Town Planner, to Lost and Found Ventures, LLC, dated June 27th, 2024. Email correspondence from Scott Shipman to the Planning and Zoning Commission, dated August 6th, 2024. Email correspondence from Brian Schock to the Planning and Zoning Commission, dated August 6th, 2024. Correspondence from Giuliano Associates to Kevin Pagini, Town Planner, dated August 7th, 2024. A memorandum to the Planning and Zoning Commission from the Department of Engineering, dated August 7th, 2024. Email correspondence to the Planning and Zoning Commission, dated August 7th, 2024. Correspondence to members of the Planning and Zoning Commission from Save Mansion Creek, LLC, dated August 9th, 2024. Correspondence from Trinkhouse Engineering, dated to whom it may concern, dated July 25th, 2024. Correspondence from Timothy Lee to Chairman James Seichter, Wallingford Planning and Zoning Commission, dated August 12th, 2024. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Allenson. If the applicant will please introduce himself and begin his presentation.
For the record, my name is Christopher Giuliano, licensed land surveyor and professional engineer with the firm Giuliano Associates. I maintain an office at 405 Main Street in the Yalesville section of town. I did note from Mr. Allison's reporting on the correspondence that there are a number of documents that we do not have. In particular, the town engineers report or memorandum of August 7th, something from the public on August 9th, I guess that's Save Mansion Creek, and then something from the last document dated July 25th. I don't believe that has much impact on what I'm going to present tonight, but just for the record, we never received that correspondence. So if something comes up, I may not have an answer for you tonight, but I'll do my best, okay? So we're here tonight basically...
Excuse me, if I could just, Mr. Pagini, when we do receive correspondence, is that not sent expeditiously to the applicant, or?
Not when it's at the last minute. Most of.
No, I know the one that's dated the 12th. I understand that.
The only one he did not receive was just I believe the town engineers that came in, I think Thursday or Friday. And that was just regarding the O&M plan.
Sure.
I think that was.
I guess I would suggest, just in the future, perhaps, send it maybe in an email or something like that. And as far as the one on the 12th, again, as Mr. Pagini said, this was just received. But if you would, here's a copy of it. You're welcome.
That's fine. Thank you. Okay, so what we're here tonight for is for a fill and excavation permit for work that is necessary for 8 Mansion Road to be developed for any use whatsoever. Basically, the property has a drainage ditch that runs from Mansion Road to the north to the wetlands at the northern end of our property. Originally, when we were before wetlands, we got an approval for this particular bit of work, fill, building of a retaining wall, extension of a storm drainage pipe. It was all part of that. It was all approved through wetlands. We do have our wetlands approval, and as this commission knows, the original zone change that we had, there was a technical issue with it. We had to come back to this commission a second time for a zone change. That zone change was denied. So instead of merging the 2 properties and moving on with the restaurant proposal, which was originally proposed on this property, the applicant has had to change gears. And he now has 2 properties, one in a DD commercial zone and another in a residential zone with an existing residential structure on it. So the idea at this point is to do some of the approved work, being approved, which was approved through wetlands, to build a retaining wall, extend the drainage pipe, so that the property known as number 8 Mansion Road could then be looked at realistically to determine what could be done with the property. Now, when we were in wetlands, one of the things that we kept hearing from the neighbors, they didn't want the restaurant, but they were fine with affordable housing or housing. And that's fine. We have no proposal yet because we need to do this work, this fill and excavation permit, to extend the pipe, fill in the ravine, and level off the property so it is more attractive for any type of development, regardless of what does happen on this property. Residential, a park, a restaurant, a doctor's office, another bank, whatever it is, this drainage ditch needs to be filled in. Property cannot be developed without that. Now, I know that the environmental planner reviewed this. She noted a bunch of differences, and I've responded to that memo, and you have a copy in there. One of the things I just want to point out from that is that the chairman of the IWWC was spoken to about this, and he admitted that this work that we're proposing before your commission to fill in that ravine was approved by their commission. It's basically a subset of what they approved. Now, we can't do everything they approved because there's the issue where we don't have both properties joined. We don't have the zone change. So we're looking at just number 8, and we'd like to do this work. So the proper course of action is come to you, get our fill and excavation permit, prep the property, and get it up to rough grade. At that time, we can truly evaluate what can be done with this property. If the applicant would like to develop it for a restaurant, another retail use, some kind of housing, we can at least look at it and know that something could be built on this. So that's kind of what we're asking. The memo that you just gave me from Attorney Lee, they make the claim here that the plan is different than what was approved by the Wetlands Commission. I don't know how they've come to that conclusion when the chairman himself basically states that this is work that they have already granted an approval for from a wetlands standpoint. So I'm just asking this commission to grant us permission to fill in the drainage ditch, extend the drainage pipe beyond, and build the wall. It's pretty simple. I can go through it up on the plan if you like. There's not a lot of detail to this at all. And like I said, this is necessary work for whatever happens on this property.
Seeing how you put the map up there,
I'll do it.
why don't you make use of it?
All right. And now I have sound. So I'm going to just step over here. So currently right now we have a drainage pipe that comes along Mansion Road and discharges onto this property right here at this location. We plan to install a manhole and extend that pipe to a second manhole, have a slight angle, and then discharge the pipe into the existing ravine. Now, since this slopes down from Mansion Road and from east, or north and south actually, we're going to be building a retaining wall here to hold back the soil so that we're not chasing this slope all the way down to the wetlands. It's a cost of building a wall so we don't have a larger wetland impact than we absolutely have to. So by building the wall, we're able to fill in this area, and on your maps, that area is in green, and that shows the limit of fill. We are just going to bring that up to rough grade. We're not building any parking lots or anything like that. I know we had our little note over here, did say bituminous. That was a holdover from when this was originally the whole project. But we're just bringing it up. We're going to loam and seed the area and let it sit. And then we'll look at it again as far as the markability of the property and what can be built on it. So this wall is the same wall that we proposed before. It is a little longer, as noted. We have basically the same outlet scour pad to protect the wetlands, same size pipe coming through here handle the stormwater flows. What you don't see from the original plans were the underground storage units, the parking lot, and the building. Why? Because we're not proposing any of it, and right now it's not needed. And quite frankly, it's a question on whether we could do it because we haven't secured both properties under one zone. So, again, as I said, it's pretty straightforward. We need to extend the drainage pipe beyond the limit of buildable property. The wall allows us to do that with minimal impact on wetlands. And basically, we are adhering to what was already approved by the Wetlands Commission. We're just seeking your approval for the fill and excavation portion of this project.
Good. Thank you. Questions for the applicant from commission members? Anyone? Mr. Pagini, comments?
Can you just describe the construction length and process and just approximately how long it might take?
Okay. Let me get the memo where I pointed that out and we documented this. Basically, we developed the scope of how this was going to be constructed in wetlands. That was on the wetlands drawing. We provided it to Kevin back on July 1st when he asked about it. It is the same exact sequence of construction. Basically, and I'll run through it, there are 20 steps. I'll go through them one at a time. Basically, we're going to cut the trees once the limits are staked by my office or by another surveyor. No stumps are going to be removed when we cut the trees. Okay. Once the trees are out of our way, we're going to install the silt fence. Then we're going to remove the stumps. So we're doing this in slow incremental phases. We're going to reinstall any damaged, disturbed silt fence once from the stump removal. We're going to then start at the preformed scour hole at the north. Preformed scour hole is right here. And we're actually going to be working our way back towards Mansion Road. So, get the preformed scour hole in, get our silt fence in. We're going to start building this wall. We're going to build it probably 2-3 stacks. These are big blocks. They're 2 feet tall, 4 feet long, by about 2 feet deep. We're going to build the first 2 to 3 layers of wall. We're also going to install about 20 to 40 feet of the drainage pipe from the discharge point sort of up to where about this existing or proposed manhole is going to be. We're then going to start backfilling up against that wall. So we're going to use the wall to contain the soil. Once we get to roughly the top or about a foot of the top of those blocks, we're going to add the next couple layer of block and continue working from this point back up this slope. That way we're only putting in a small portion of material at a time. We get it compacted properly and we build the wall up and we keep coming back. And as we continue to place more and more soil, we're going to be laying this pipe along the bottom of this existing drainage ditch to the existing outlet, where we're going to be installing that second manhole. Again, this way we have the wall containing all the erosion, we have the preformed scour hole, we have the silt fence, everything in place from an erosion standpoint. When we were talking with and discussing this whole process in the inland wetlands, we figured that this was about a 2.5 week process. So not very long. It's the wall in some places is quite tall. We have a profile on the second sheet, but it's not a very big area to actually do this. So the chairman actually thought this process would take about a week. I'm a little bit more conservative. I think just with construction and everything, about a 2.5 week process to do this whole activity and get it filled in and compacted. And then we'd loam, seed it, and once it's established, we can remove the silt fence and be done.
With that, this is a public hearing. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak on the application? If you would, just please come forward with your name and address. And I guess just please keep in mind what we're focusing on is a fill application.
Sharon Petrillo, 164 Mansion Road. Good evening, respected members of this commission. On behalf of the citizens group Save Mansion Creek, I would like to urge this commission to deny the applicant's special permit for the excavation, piping, and filling of the eastern ravine on the subject property located at 8 and 10 Mansion Road for the following reasons. We are absolutely confident that the eastern ravine, aka the ditch, is the outsource of Nod Brook, which is a permanent regulated watercourse. We have obtained outside expert testimony supporting the mapping and watercourse designation of Nod Brook based upon our extensive field work, which will prove this is indeed a permanent regulated watercourse. We strongly believe that the wetlands decision of 10/4/2023 was based upon incomplete and/or inaccurate information and plans. If such information subsequently proves to be false, deceptive, incomplete, and/or inaccurate, this permit should be modified, suspended, or revoked. The plans submitted in support of the present application differ significantly from those which the applicant received his wetlands approval. To the best of our knowledge, the applicant has not submitted new site plans to the Wetlands Commission. The issue here is not the specific use of the property, but rather the need for careful reevaluation of what the potential adverse impact on the site's wetlands and watercourses might be given the changes in the plans. This plan is not what the wetlands approved, therefore the owner would need to go back to the wetlands to obtain approval for the work the current owner wants to do as a modification of the original wetland approval. When the applicant submitted his plans to get his wetlands permit and his zone change, we saw detailed information about the restaurant, food truck pads, parking lot, and driveway that he wanted to build on the site. Then you denied the zone change back in April. Now for this special permit, there is nothing shown except the existing old house. Where did the restaurant, etc. go? According to P&Z Regulation 7.5C, wasn't he supposed to submit a statement of proposed use? We don't see one. Does he still plan to go ahead with his project? Where and how? Or if he doesn't plan to go ahead, why is he doing such a massive amount of excavation and filling? We do not see how anyone can tell if this special permit application satisfies P&Z Regulation 7.5B, appropriateness of location or use in a residential zone. Are we going to have the same or worse traffic and public safety issues, a disaster waiting to happen, which caused you to deny the zone change, or will there still be other issues? Should this special permit be approved and the applicant be permitted to excavate, pipe, and fill what we believe with such certainty to be an intermittent stream, and we win our pending appeal at Superior Court, how can the applicant undo the damage he has caused by this commission granting this special permit to the applicant? Consideration shall also be given to the residents and property owners within the substantial watershed area of Nod Brook, as the alteration of this ravine's watercourse could potentially cause major water issues for those residents and property owners. I also have memo I'd like to read that came in very late this afternoon. This is from Gaborny Benoit, who is a PhD at Yale. He works in the environmental department. And it's addressed to Karen and myself. I have examined the area around Nodbrook and Mansion Creek by means of Google Earth and various town and other maps. Based on the resources and my years of experience in hydrology and geomorphology, I judge Nodbrook to be a natural watercourse flowing down from Sleeping Giant to its outsource on the property known as 10 Mansion Road. In the area of a garage at 7 Mansion, it flows through a culvert installed in 1948 and re-emerges across the street in a ravine, and shortly thereafter into Quinnipiac River. Nevertheless, passing through a culvert in no way alters the fundamental nature of the brook, and many, if not most, small watercourses do at some point as they flow across the Connecticut landscape.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other members of the public that would like to speak? Again, I would like to just point out that this is for, for fill application, that the jurisdiction with respect to whether it's a drainage ditch, a brook, what have you, that's under the purview of the Wetlands Commission. The Wetlands Commission, through their meeting, and I believe the public had the opportunity to present information at that meeting, came to a determination that it wasn't, and in fact, granted an approval for essentially what's being proposed as far as filling the property. So I want to point that out.
Well, I'd like to speak to that, if I may. It's concerns. It has a concern. I, as intervening complainant, was not allowed on that property as I should have been to bring in our soil scientist to evaluate that. We were hoodwinked, pretty much. And we were not allowed to present any evidence. We were pretty much shut down. And no one from that committee bothered to take the time to walk across the street, drive to Nod Brook, walk through miles of woods like I did, and GIS map that brook that flows in there. It is a watercourse. And if he fills that in, we will win the appeal. I know we will, because we have massive evidence. And we're at the point in court now where briefs are being written, evidence, and it's going to happen. So what happens when he fills that in, we win. What is he going to do? Undig all that? Put it back to what it was?
Well, he'd have to remediate the property, or...
Well, why bother letting it go that far? Wait for the appeal. Wait for us to prove. That is a watercourse.
Well, there's certain, I suspect you're represented by an attorney.
Yes, we are.
I suspect there's probably some options that you could take through your attorney.
We are.
To look for some type of, some type of injunction.
If we lose this, we are.
But
we're
again,
not done.
Yeah, but
we're
again,
not done.
what I'm saying is this is something that we, as the Planning and Zoning Commission, don't have jurisdiction over when it's a wetlands issue.
I understand that, and I appreciate that. And you guys have been wonderful, and we truly respect your judgment. I just want to let you know we were not allowed to properly go onto that property and prove that it was a wetland.
Yeah, again, that may very well be the case, but again, that's something that, this commission was not involved with, and we have just certain things that we can or can't do in how we can act. So with that, other members of the public would like to speak. Yes. On the right side, you'll be next.
I'm Representative Mary Mashinsky. I live at 188 South Cherry Street, and I was asked to look at this whole parcel and what's going to be done with it in the future because I work in watershed protection in my other job. I did not go on the site because I'm not allowed to do that. I observed it when there was a rain incident going on and the small ravine was flowing. I did check on the historic nature of the stream. If you look in the Connecticut Library, you can get flyover photos going way back in time. You can actually see the terrain before it was developed. And I use that sometimes as detective work to see where a stream impact is, where flooding might happen. Because sometimes these water bodies are erased by development and you can no longer see them in present day. But you can see them looking back in time in the photos. I believe that Wetland Commission did make an error. If you look back in time, you can see there definitely was a stream there, although it looks like a small ravine now. But it does carry water. I could see that from the road, standing and looking at it, without getting on the property. The reason this becomes important is that whole side of town is very developed and it's very hilly. And so when fill is put in, storage is eliminated, then you get flooding on the next people downhill. And right now I'm working on a case on Barrel Lane off of Cook Hill Road. Same problem. People upslope of them removed water storage, wetlands, and affected streams. And so the people at the bottom of the slope, who are Barrel Lane, which is in the back door of Oakdale Theater, they get the water from upslope. And they've dragged me out there a couple times to look at their flooding because the landscape can no longer handle the water gently and properly. It now comes all in a rush and hits the people at the downstream of Cook Hill. So I'm trying to avoid this on Mansion Road, putting in 37,896 cubic feet of fill into what was historically a stream, you could see it on the maps and in the photos, is a mistake. And when I see a mistake coming, I think about the cases I'm working on now, and I see this one is preventable, and I wish to prevent it. I don't want to come back to Mansion Road later and say this was a preventable situation and I didn't do anything. So I'm bringing that up because I think filling, 37,000 cubic feet of fill in what is an historic stream is an error and will cause downstream impacts. That's the only reason I'm mentioning it, and I want the Commission to know that there are existing problems on that hill, and it would be nice to not add another one. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Yes, gentleman up front.
Good evening, gentlemen. George Messier, 12 Nodbrook Road. Lived there since 1978. One of the original owners of Nodbrook. I've been there ever since. My direction here is quality of life. And I am not convinced one bit that they don't know what their plan is beyond filling this ditch. They have a plan beyond filling this ditch, and it compromises the quality of life in everybody that lives on the Mansion Road complex. People didn't go into a rural or suburban neighborhood as far removed from Route 5 as Nodbrook, waiting for the day that real estate is sold to a commercial developer for a gas and go, a fast food restaurant, or some other enterprise. The people that live in the Nodbrook and Wallingford, or excuse me, Mansion Road complex do not want 10 Mansion Road and 8 Mansion Road to turn into an extension of the flea market just down the street. No one would like to buy the houses that live across the street from that flea market. No one wants that flea market to be extended up into Mansion Road as a convenience food stop for people who are there on Friday or Saturday or Sunday at the flea market. They didn't move out to that portion of the town to see Main Street move into Nodbrook. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Other members of the public? Yes, gentleman back there. Anyone, any other members of the public like to speak on the application? Please raise your hands. Seeing none, this gentleman will be our last speaker.
Robert O'Connor, 53 Brentwood Drive. When I went to the Inlands Wetlands Commission meetings, and there was many of the meetings, I was very, very confused that the final result of what came about at those meetings. Now, the last person that spoke at that meeting, the last one was Mr. Heilman. And It just seemed like he went against exactly what he was talking about, and he flip-flopped right at the end and said it was a interrupted waterway. It's not an interrupted waterway. That has not, I've been at this address for 5.5, 6 years. It's never stopped. I don't care, even that year of the drought, it didn't stop. It has not stopped running. Putting a piping that out any further and adding any amount of fill, you would have to have a massive wall. I don't know, this gentleman says 3 squares high. I don't see how 7 feet of the retaining wall is going to hold back what they want to put there. And another thing, and I want to say this very candidly, I've been following these procedures. I've been coming to all the meetings. I don't think Mr. Fellini has been forthright. I think he's been a little shady with this deal. This was not said. He was not forthright
Sir,
with
let's
and
keep
he's still not.
Sir, let's keep the personalities out of it. Let's stick.
No, not
let's stick.
personalities. I'm talking about what is actually going to be done with the
Just calm
property.
down for a second. Look, we're talking about a fill location. We're not here to relitigate what decision the Wetlands Commission made. That's not our purview.
Okay, putting all that fill in that area will definitely, it will inadvertently hurt the wetlands that are back there. I don't know if you could picture looking at it from the other way. Everybody's looking at it from the mansion roadway. You don't see anything. You look at it from the other way, and you could see what it's going to do. The first thing he said, we're going to cut down all the trees. That's the only thing. Those trees are the only thing that's stopping us from looking at that pit anyway. The people that are in Lower Brentwood Village that spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on a beautiful place have to look across now, and they're going to cut all those trees down. There's a person that's on Save Mansion Creek that lives directly next door, the next property over. Is he going to want all those trees cut down? How about the proximity to the Brentwood property? It's too close. It just isn't a viable thing. Great, he bought a piece of property. He didn't think. That property is not made for what he wants to do. You know how much, I don't think that what he's proposing to do with these blocks is going to do it anyway. I've done construction in my life. I know what they have to do. And I do not think that what is being proposed, there's something, it's going to have to be either a parking lot or a building. There's a reason why he wants to make that flat. And it's not to put a piece of grass in. The people want to know. Just because that little section's commercial, that little section, this guy's got a pipe dream that's going to work. I don't think that filling that in is in any way going to help anybody. It's not going to help the quality of life. It's not going to happen. It shouldn't happen. I'm really, really surprised at the way this is going. And I'd be even more surprised if this goes through, because it's stupid to me to think that if you look at it, it's an amazing, it's such an undertaking that it cost him $1 million to fix it. So if he's going to cost $1 million to put that in, it's going to definitely he's going to want to put something up that's going to generate that kind of money. He's not doing it to lose money, and we have to be very careful what happens there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Mary Beth Semino, and I live at 145 Brentwood Drive. I look right into the ravine. If you fill that ravine up and you have 2 pieces of property, commercial and residential, what is the purpose of filling the ravine? You can't build on that commercial piece, because what is that rock? You're going to have to do explosions to get rid of the rock to put something commercial there? I don't know if you can do that there. So filling in the ravine suits what purpose? You already have enough land to build something residential or a very small day-run business, filling in the ravine does what? Because there is another motive. Is he going to come back to you and go, oh, look, we got more land now, we can make the whole thing commercial in our residential neighborhood after you've already thrown it out? What's the motive? It's two pieces of property. He wants to make it one. Is it going to be commercial or is it going to be residential once it's filled in? Are you going to change your minds? Are you going to come back again and say, oh, well, now it's filled in and we have more property, we're going to make it commercial after we went through all this? You just talked about Grieve Road where you live. This is my neighborhood, 35 plus years. I don't want this there. I don't mind a lawyer, a dentist, an eye doctor. 2 tiny houses, 2 condos would fit perfectly there. What are you going to do with that huge rock? I don't know. I think it has some sort of mineral value. You need to check into what's going on around us. The water going through there. The bear, our neighborhood bear. Our foxes, our bobcats, our fisher cats, our owls. To our neighborhood. We've all had kids grow up here. Why do you want to do this now? What is your motive? We have a right to know.
Thank you. Other members of the public that would like to speak on the application? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission. Any commission members with, or I guess, Mr. Giuliano.
Would you like me to address the comments, or at least
Absolutely.
some of it?
Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
First of all, there's a bit of misinformation coming to this commission from the public. The gentleman said we're cutting all the trees. That is not true. We're going to cut. He made it sound like we're cutting all the trees to the Brentwood property, which is located here. That is absolutely not true. This whole area is wetlands. Our limit of tree clearing is in the uplands. We come down into an extended upland review area for the wetlands, and we tie into the existing tree line. We're not cutting all the trees. We're not really cutting a lot of trees. Mr. Pagini asked how many, and I honestly answered him, we didn't count how many trees. We did tell him that once we stake out the clearing limits, we would flag them. He could come out and see. We'd give him a count. But we're not denuding this piece of property in the least. They talk about property being residential. No, it is both residential and commercial. The zone change line, I believe it's 235 feet, 255 feet from South Turnpike. It kind of runs through here. 8 Mansion Road, which is the larger of the two, is commercial. The triangular piece here is residential. We've already been through the process about combining it. This commission denied that request. So right now, we are approaching it as we have a residential piece of property, we have a commercial piece of property. In order to do something, and the ravine, by the way, runs right through the center of this commercial piece of property. And yes, there is a knob of rock here in the front yard setback to South Turnpike. So if we can fill this area in, we can create a flat area on this commercial piece that, yes, maybe a small dentist office, a second one, or a doctor's office, a lawyer's office, could possibly be on here. Or maybe a small restaurant. I don't know.
Well, let's just be a little
That's
bit more
class.
respectful.
That
here.
is class.
Let's not get into a discussion back and forth with the public.
I'm trying to be professional and
I
polite
understand you're trying to be professional, and I hope all the members of the public would be respectful. That's what we anticipate here. And if you can't be respectful, there's the door.
Thank you. As far as the new information that has been brought up from the PhD individual, and he's talking about this ravine being something from Nod Brook, I think he's mistaken. I don't think he's ever been out here. Yes, you can look at all the maps. You can be an expert. We had experts as well. I believe what he's talking about, because he mentioned the word culvert. There's a culvert that comes across Mansion Road to our north, that comes under the road onto 12 Mansion Road and flows through. And this would be the water course for Nod Brook, not this. This is directly across from the Federal Credit Union that's here. There is a pipe that goes to a flat-top catch basin in the lawn on their property. It takes surface runoff because it is a wet area behind and to the north of the Federal Credit Union. So we get some overland flow. Most of the flow that comes down through this now is runoff from Mansion Road. This is the low point in Mansion Road from the intersection, low point, and then the high point. So the idea that this is a running brook or has been is not the case. Wetlands determine that. Twice now, 2 members from the public said that they couldn't go on the property. No one is asked to go on the property. And in fact, Chairman Vitale even brought this up to their wetland consultant. Asked her if she had asked us for permission. And she said no. No one asked. We didn't deny anyone access to the property. There were signs of
Let's just hold it right here. We're not getting back and forth between the public and the applicant. We've given the public the opportunity to ask questions, to make their comments. We've given everybody the opportunity to do that. We've brought it now back to the applicant, for the applicant to answer some of those questions and to continue with the proposal. We are not going to go back and forth. That's not how this commission is run, so we're not going to do that. We've given the public the opportunity to speak. The applicant now is finishing his presentation. Excuse me, we're not going back and forth. Look, we're not going to start throwing out those accusations. Look, we're not, excuse me, I'm not going to get into that. I'm sorry.
My apologies. But yes, there are no trespassing signs on the property for liability reasons. But again, if they had asked, and that's all they had to do, they would have been given permission because they were interveners.
Well, I don't, look, I'm asking you to be respectful here. He is presenting it. You've had your opportunity to speak. And I would just appreciate it if you would be respectful to that, because we're not going into a back and forth discussion. That's not how the commission operates. You know, I don't want to seem to be unreasonable, but we're just not doing that. Would you please continue?
And I'll finish by just stating again, this was reviewed by the environmental planner. She had a bunch of comments on it. None of them were wetlands or environmental related. The chairman reviewed it. He agrees that this is a subset of work they've already approved. If my client is willing to move forward at his own risk to fill it in so that he can actually contemplate what more or what can be best use of this property is, now that it can't be one piece of property, that risk is on his, and he's willing to take it. But we need to do this work and flatten out this area regardless of what is built on here. Otherwise, it is a useless, unvaluable piece of property. We wouldn't be able to do anything on it. And if that's the case, and they want to keep it open, they can talk to my client and buy it. He has a price tag, but we're just asking to be able to do work that we have an approval for. And we need your permission to fill in this, extend the pipe, and build a retaining wall. And I'll end it right there.
Good.
My apologies.
Good. Thank you. Commission members with comments on the application. Mr. Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Quite frankly, I don't have enough information on this map to make a decision. I think that there needs to be the culverts documented in here. I'd like to actually see, I've tried to forget the last couple meetings about Mansion Road. I'd like to see the delineation between 8 Mansion Road and 10 Mansion Road on the map. I'd like to see the rock outcropping. I think that, the green area needs to be where you have the 62-foot contour. I'd like to see how you're going to, there's a 2-foot difference between the 62 and the 64, which is the next contour, so it goes up as you fill it. How is that just going to be left? Is there going to be any support to that fill right there at the 62-foot contour? How it maps with the, again, the 64-foot. There is a drainage pipe that you have in the retaining wall. Again, I'd like to see the other intrusions from across the street as far as, again, those culverts coming across the street into, 8 and 10 Mansion Road. And quite frankly, a lot has been made about the wetlands approval. Yeah, you did get wetlands approval about a year ago, but honestly, there was and still is, based on Mary Mashinsky's comments and the other lady, as well as another soil scientist who did surmise, who did state that there is an intermittent water course where you're filling in. And I'm not sure that the inland wetlands had that information when they approved this over a year ago. And, again, this came up with the previous application before or after the inland wetlands, made the filling okay. And basically, I think that intermittent water course, you can't dewater the wetlands. And, if, and again, taking the knowledge we got from the last application, if there is that intermittent water course, you're going to impact the wetlands and the other ravine areas. And we can't do that. You're shaking your head,
I
Chris.
am, because you were on wetlands, and what you're saying is bothering me because we're extending a pipe. We are not dewatering a wetland.
So, okay,
All right,
that's fine. And again, I'm asking you to show that on the map. I don't see that.
It is, we're extending the pipe. That is being shown. You mentioned 8 and 10. We have the delineation, which is existing property line.
Where is the pipe? I'm not seeing it then.
Where
is the culvert coming across the street?
Okay. Right now, we have 2 catch basins in Mansion Road, right here. We have a pipe that discharges here onto number 8 and then goes through the drainage ditch and into the wetland. Now, when I mentioned the culvert, I wouldn't call this a culvert. This isn't a culvert. It is a discharge pipe for road drainage.
You're wrong. I got video of the road being dry.
I walked Nod Brook.
Again, we're not going back and forth with the members of the public.
So I guess I'm not, can you point it out on this map? Is this what I'm supposed to be looking at right here?
Yes. Catch basin in the street.
Get your microphone, please, just so you can pick it up.
Okay.
Okay, so that
Catch
is
ba-
what you're
Yeah,
pointing.
catch basin, existing pipe ends here. And then we will extend it beyond the wall so that we could fill in this area. Now, as I stated, from here, not shown on,
You can do it on
Okay.
that map.
all right.
I just wanted to be sure.
Yeah, no, from this catch basin on this side of Mansion Road, which is where the Federal Credit Union is, There is a pipe that comes out, and there is a structure over on this property that does pick up some ground flow. And that can bleed into this. But the primary of this is takes in the storm drainage in the road.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, put your mic on, please.
Reprehensible. Everybody's had an opportunity to speak. This gentleman is presenting his side. If you want conversations, take them outside. You're showing the disrespect that you're showing to this commission is doing you absolutely no good. Do we understand ourselves? Any question? Then I expect that he'll make his presentation, we will make our comments, and we will not be interrupted and saying, you don't do it considering this or considering that. You've had your say. Does you absolutely no good. Does everybody understand that now? Respectful silence, that's what we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parent.
If I can just, one last comment.
go
You
ahead.
asked about the grading, and you talk about this elevation 62, 64.
Yeah.
So I think you're talking about here is elevation 62, and it goes
Right.
up to the knob, which is here, that everyone kind of knows when they drive by. Comes down into the ravine, which is the low point running through here, and it comes back up on this side. So in order to flatten this area out, we're going to install a wall across the ravine. And as I said earlier, this is a very large wall. And then there is a picture, and the height is everything is on sheet 2, so you have that information. So once we put that in there, we can then fill this area up to elevation 62. So it'll be elevation 62 here at the end of the day, 62 here in the middle, and coming back to 62. So it'll all be one elevation from in this area. Going up, continue going up to 64 and higher on this side, and coming up to 64, 65 in this area. So there is no having to hold back or retain the soil on the sides of the ravine. The wall holds it in place from going down into the wetlands. That's the whole point. And in this area, because it's compacted, it'll then be loamed and seeded and stabilized. Does
So-
that explain?
Okay,
We're
so what is the lighter area here? Because it's kind of,
The lighter area, you mean the blue?
yeah, it's X'd out on your legend. I can't read it.
The area of blue is the area of what, basically it's a wetlands requirement and a little bit of planning and zoning. Area of steep slopes. When we have the area of steep slopes, as you're aware, because you're on Wetlands Commission, we have to extend our upland review area from 50 feet to to a maximum of 100 feet. So we calculated the areas that were more than a 2-to-1 slope, steep slopes, and then we had to determine where our extended upland review area went for a wetlands purpose. We've left that on there for planning and zoning, so for continuity purposes, it is just an area of steep slopes. That's all.
Okay, so yeah, just, again, I think for me, the question about, filling in that water course is, how do we resolve that? I mean, there's been a couple of professional people who state that there is, and it's not that hard to determine. I mean, you look at some of the way the leaves and the rocks have been pushed, and so you got a couple of professionals that have said it exists there, and how do we resolve that?
Well, we had 2 soil scientists, well-respected as well, and intermittent water courses or water courses, they have 4 specific criteria. They both determined that the criteria wasn't met. Their soil scientist, unfortunately, didn't want to ask for permission to go. I have no other way to say it. Didn't want to ask for permission to go on the property to review it. And the commission sided with our professionals. So it's a drainage ditch. It's been known as a drainage ditch for years. So, and that was one of the bones of contention in this. But wetlands sided with Mr. Logan, and I don't remember the other gentleman's name who we had on our team, but they sided with them. And it was deemed not to be an intermittent water course.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm all set.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. Other commission members like to comment? Jim? Anyone? Yes, Mr. Allenson.
Just quick question to our town planner, because there's been a little bit of back and forth about this issue with inland and wetlands approval and everything else. As far as I'm aware, the application before us is not a review or an appellate review of what Inlands and Wetlands has decided on their permitting. That's a completely separate type of application that would be brought not before us, right?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. So, because we've decided applications before, and if we were to take into potentially appellate questions on inlands and wetlands decisions, that would really be outside of our purview and outside of our authority to act, right?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. I just wanted to be clear on that, Mr. Chairman, because I'm hearing a lot of back and forth. I'm hearing a lot of questions that relate to the inland and wetlands approval, which is not before us. Inlands and Wetlands has an approval as far as I'm aware. And I know that's not what the public wants to hear right now, but we have a very specific job. That being said, I haven't been on this board, on this commission, as long as some of the other folks here have. I really appreciate that we've had congenial conversations. We've had the public having opportunities to speak. We've given time for everybody to speak, even on applications where we're not required to. And I appreciate everybody having passion for this, but it has to be one at a time to make this work. And I appreciate everyone's patience throughout this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Allison. And just to kind of piggyback on your point, as I said, initially that we're not here to relitigate wetlands. I've had, this morning, I met with our corporate counsel and, had that discussion with her, and she was very clear that, wetlands is the one who has the control of the wetlands. It was their review of the property. People had the opportunity to ask questions, voice their concerns. They may or may not have received the type of response to the answers that they received, but the wetlands acted on the application. That's their purview. And I believe there's, some information, I believe as Mr. Giuliano mentioned, the chairman of the Inland Wetlands Commission, basically confirmed that this is their application, or rather, they approved the wetlands application. It's within their purview, and certainly it's their responsibility to go out and monitor what's going on this property. So I think that's where we are. At this point in time, Mr. Giuliano, I suspect you're probably all talked out, although maybe you're not.
I have nothing further, sir. Thank you.
Commission members, any other comments, questions for the applicant before I ask for a motion to close the public hearing? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we close the public hearing for application 407-24, special permit for excavation and filling of land, Lost and Found Ventures, LLC, 8 Mansion Road.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Cohan, voting beginning with Mr. Cohan.
Yes.
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 And yes, now entertain a motion on the application.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve application 407-24, special permit request for excavation and filling of land at 8 Mansion Road on plans entitled Grading Plan of Lost and Found Ventures LLC dated 6/6/2024, subject to 1, comments from the town planner dated 6/27/2024, 2, comments from the environmental planner Aaron O'Hare dated 8/2/2024, 3, comments from the town engineer Allison Kapczynski dated 8/7/2024, 4, notification to the town planner environmental planner prior to commencement of work, 5, erosion and sediment control bond in the amount of $10,500, and 6 copies of the final plans forward to Planning and Zoning Office.
We have a motion on the application. Do we have a second?
Second?
Second by Mr. Cohen. Voting beginning with Mr. Cohen.
No.
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 Yes.
And yes, your application has been denied, sir. Brings us to our next order of business. A special permit for a car wash to a dealership, tow yard, One Source Towing and Repair on Kamal. The applicant would please come forward to begin the presentation. No, 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 yes, yes.
Yes, yes. No, no, no.
You said no, right?
But it's not important. Thank you.
And Mr. Allenson, if you would please read the legal notice and note all correspondence.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Number 408-24, special permit request to convert a car wash facility to a dealer/tow yard located at 130 Dudley Ave, -I-20, Industrial District. We have interdepartmental comments from, oh gosh. Program planning? Yeah, maybe it's Don Crouch. Dated June 17th, 2024. Sorry. Inspection report from the Wallingford Fire Department dated June 18th, 2024. Email correspondence from Scott Shipman, Senior Engineer, to Planning and Zoning Commission dated August 6th, 2024. Email correspondence from Brian Schuck to the Planning and Zoning Commission dated August 6th, 2024. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Allenson. If the applicant would please introduce himself and make his presentation.
Yes, absolutely. My name is Yaman Rivera. I'm from North Haven, 89 Elm Street, and I have a business in East Haven, and we heard good things about Wallingford, and I have an opportunity to come into Wallingford, and I would like to expand into the city and hopefully to, grow our business.
Would you please give us some information as far as what your business is and what exactly you're looking to do?
Yeah. We have a plan to open up a dealership. Some of the stuff that's going to go with that dealership is, we are our U-Haul dealer. So Wallingford currently needs a dealership for U-Hauls, from what they're telling me. And then in the plan with that is to start a tow company here too, which we already have, but we do need a license here in Wallingford.
And as far as a dealership, what type of dealership? And give us some information as far as how this is going to operate.
It's going to be a very small dealership. It's just an opportunity to create extra revenue to pay off the leases and stuff like that. It's very, very small. We're probably assuming like maybe 5 to 10 cars, nothing bigger than that. It's just there's not enough space in there to open up a bigger dealership and operate a tow company, at the same time.
Again, when you say a dealership, and now you're talking about cars.
Car dealership, yeah. Car dealership and U-Hauls.
So it's going to be a combination of U-Hauls?
Yes.
In cars?
In cars, yes.
And that's the extent of it?
Yes, and obviously the tow company will have his own parked cars in a section of the property. We just don't know how many cars will be there.
Can you show us on where in fact, how this is going to operate, where you're going to have your dealership, where you're going to have your vehicles, where you're going to have the tows, where you're towing everything?
Yeah, I submitted a site plan with Kevin, and I kind of outlined some of the parking spaces I was going to have there.
I guess, Mr. Pagini, I guess we have that. If I suspect the commission member would like to see just exactly how this is going to operate, because, I mean, quite candidly, and this is not directed at you, but we've had many applicants come before us to say, I want to start a car dealership, or I want to start, towing, what have you. And we've always gotten a plan. They've given us the plan. We've discussed it. We've discussed the number of cars, and we've done all of that. People have said, don't worry, I will do everything that I've told you. I'll live up to everything. And, within several months, all of a sudden now, it's not the way it was presented. And then we have our zoning enforcement officer chasing everybody to try to get them in compliance. So that's why I think it's important that, as part of your presentation, and you may want to come back next month, perhaps could be a little bit more prepared for that. I'm not suggesting that, but it's an idea. So you can have your plan. You can be more specific as far as what you're planning to do on the property, specifically on the property, specifically how many cars you're going to have on there, and how it's going to operate. That's my suggestion. I don't know how other commission members may feel about that.
I would agree.
Yeah, I think it would be much more beneficial for you. And again, you may want to, meet with our town planner, and he can perhaps give you a little bit more direction, because, again, it's not meant as criticism towards you, but, it seems like you have some ideas that you'd like to do, but we'd certainly like to see them a little bit more, concrete with respect to, this particular property, just given some of the issues that we've had with similar types of business. And again, it's not directed at you, but it's simply a suggestion.
Yep, and I was told that by Kevin. That's why I marked in the site plan where the vehicles are going to be parked at and where the vehicles are going to be stored at.
But I think I think that would be the best approach.
Okay.
Okay. Commission member, yes, Mr. Cohen.
Yeah, just one question when you come back next month. How many cars do you expect for the impound lot at a time? Any idea?
To the impound, I don't have any any data to support that. It could be from just a few cars. It all depends on how people tend to pick up their vehicles. Some people just abandon them, and if, like I explained to Kevin, if we do get an overflow, it will have to go to our East Haven lot, which we have 20 acres over there, and that way we could stay in compliance with Wallingford, with however many vehicles are to be stored.
So how many cars does that area you have set aside support?
For the impound, 5 to 10.
Okay, all right, good enough. Thanks. 5 to 10. Thank you.
Anyone else? So we'd like to continue this for a more detailed presentation by the applicant. So at this point in time, provided you have no objection, I'd like to have a motion to continue this to our next month's meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we continue application 408-24, special permit car wash to a dealer, tow yard, one source towing and repair, Kamal 136 Dudley Ave, to the September Planning and Zoning Commission meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fitzsimmons. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Abstentions? Sir, we'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to it's a Connecticut General Statutes 824 application for the town to purchase 4 Fairfield Boulevard. Mr. Allison, if you'd please note all correspondence for the record, and if we have the applicant, please come forward to give the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Correspondence from the Mayor's Office to the Planning and Zoning Commission dated July 25th, 2024. Email correspondence from Linda Lavelle to Kevin Pagini and the Planning and Zoning Commission dated August 12th, 2024. And that is also has appended to it a memorandum from the superintendent of schools.
Good.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Allison. If the applicant would please introduce himself and get his presentation.
Good evening. My name is Dominic Barone. I'm the business manager for the Board of Ed. Superintendent is very sorry she's not able to make it tonight, so I'm here in her place. So we are hoping to be able to, we're hoping town buys this building and we're able to put the Board of Education in there. We want to move in 3 key components of the Board of Ed, one being our adult ed program, the second being the Wallingford Transition Academy, which are students that are like 19, 20, 21 years old, and also then put our central office building, the back office, the business office, the HR curriculum, those areas into the property. Currently we're in 3 different areas, and we would all go into this one structure. It could house us. And in my understanding, there's another tenant in the property that the city is going to work with. So that's in a nutshell. I don't know if you want me to delve more into what each department does, or if that's enough for you.
Unless other commission members would like to have that information, I think we're pretty much familiar with it.
Okay.
Again, it seems like what you're looking to do is basically consolidate some of the operations, probably get out of an expensive lease that you may have for the Board of Education, and provide additional space for adult education as well as for the other program that you mentioned.
Correct. That sums it up nicely.
Okay. Commission members with questions for the applicant? Yes, Mr. Rivard.
Thank you, Chairman. Good to see you, Mr. Barone. I absolutely support a home for these 2 programs, and consolidation makes a lot of sense based on my experience. One question I did have, only because it relates potentially to the folks that'll want to access this, is there a discussion of access associated with transportation to the facility, and is that in discussion, and would that affect
There is discussion
the site?
as to whether we could do something with the bus line and we're looking at other solutions also. And you're addressing mainly the adult ed, correct? Versus, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you. Other commission members? Yes, Mr. Sanders.
Forgive me if this is information that's been at previous meetings. I've not got a chance to catch up on all of them, but was wondering, the current facility where the central office is at 100 South Turnpike Road, would that still be in use afterwards, or would the town be able to move to be free of that? I don't know if that's leased or owned or what.
It's leased, and we think that by the time this is all set up for us to move, we would be at the end, either at the end or close to the end of our lease with that property. So we would not renew.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other commission members, again, this is not a public hearing, but we always give everyone an opportunity that's here to comment on an application. Does anybody like to come forward? Raise your hand, come forward, and name an address. Seeing none, bring it back to the commission for any final comments to the applicant, or if the applicant would like to expand on his very extensive presentation.
I'm good I'm glad to answer any questions.
All right, good enough. At this point in time, I'd entertain a motion on the item.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve Connecticut General Statute 8-24, request for the town of Wallingford to purchase property at 4 Fairfield Boulevard because it will be used by the Board of Ed to better serve the community.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fitzsimmons, voting beginning with Mr. Cohen.
Yes.
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 And yes. It's been approved. Have a good evening, sir.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Moving on to our next item. Again, it's another Connecticut General Statute 824. It's air right easement request for Choate Rosemary Hall for proposed pedestrian bridge. Again, if the applicant would come forward to begin preparing for the presentation. And Mr. Allison, if you would note all items for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have correspondence from the mayor to Planning and Zoning Commission dated July 25th, 2024. We have correspondence from Allison Cady to Mayor Savoni dated July 15th, 2024. We have what appears to be slides, PowerPoint slides entitled Proposed Pedestrian Bridge at Christian Street Crossing, dated July 8th, 2024. We have correspondence from John Ventura, Chief of Police, to the Planning and Zoning Commission, dated August 9th, 2024. Email correspondence from Kevin Pagini, Town Planner, to Wallingford Planning and Zoning Commission, dated August 12th, 2024. And
I thought it was here earlier.
I'm not sure if this is a duplicate. I believe it's a duplicate. I believe that's it. Thank you.
That's it. Thank you, Mr. Allison. Again, if the applicant would please introduce himself and begin his presentation.
Good evening. My name is Patrick Durbin, representing Choate Rosemary Hall, 333 Christian Street in Wallingford. So we are here after first going to Town Council a couple of weeks ago, seeking an air easement over Christian Street for a pedestrian bridge right around Rosemary Lane. This is my first 8.24 hearing, so I didn't bring boards today because I know we'll be back if this proceeds. The topic of pedestrian safety has been before this commission. We've talked about it here before. We've talked about it in Town Council before. It's very important to us. I know it's important to the town. I know Mr. Parent in one of the prior hearings, and I think some of others on the commission have brought up the idea of a bridge. Also ideas of tunnels, which have also been explored, and unfortunately they go too deep because of the infrastructure in the road. But we took a serious look at it, and as we move cars away from the four-way stop, and with the athletic fields and with the club sports teams, and Sheehan High School used our fields last year while their fields were under renovation. They're using them again this fall, this preseason in August as well. Trying to provide a safe crossing on that eastern side of campus is something that's very important to all of us in the community.
That's the extent of it?
That's the extent of it. It will be accessible. It will be an accessible pathway from both sides of the bridge. That's important to us. So happy to answer any questions. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, this is, it's an 8-24 because of what the town is looking to do. So it's really about the air easement over Christian Street. The actual entire proposal and everything would come back. So that's why we're here under 8-24. It's for the concept of.
It's just, yeah, exactly. It's just simply the air easement. It's not for the bridge. It's not for anything like that. If the town, correct me if I'm wrong, but the town council has yet to make a decision on this. Is this correct?
That's correct. Your decision would be reported back to them for their consideration.
And then they have the opportunity to either, whatever our decision may or may not be, they either agree with it or don't agree with it. Is that fair to say?
If you had a negative view of this, then they would need a supermajority to approve it, and they would still be able to do that.
Okay. So again, it's something yet to be considered. It's just simply an air easement. If that would be approved first by this commission and then approved by the town, then it would be subject to coming back with the plan for the bridge. I know you gave us some renderings. Whether that turns out to be that way or not, At this point in time, it's, as far as discussing that is not something that would be appropriate to do because we're only looking at an air easement. We're not looking at a structure right now and how that may be constructed or whatever it may be.
I think that's accurate. However, I mean, what we have put forth is a design that will further develop it. And
Yeah, no,
we'll come back to
I
this
understand
commission.
that. I don't want to say it's conceptual, but in some ways
Correct.
it's conceptual, depending upon what action may or may not
Correct.
be taken.
That's correct.
Good. Commission members with questions? Yes, Mr. Allison.
Just one quick question. Well, first of all, tunnels are cooler than bridges. Just want to put that on the record. But because it would be an air easement, let's say down the road, this conceptual bridge is pretty close to what's done, everything gets approved. How does access to the bridge work? Would it be accessible since there's sidewalks that are there for both students as well as the public?
Yes.
Or is there going to be limited access?
No, it is. It will not be a limited access bridge. Just like so, members of the public today can, they use our cross country trails, they use our track and field. In the winter, they come into our gym to walk the elevated track. This bridge and crossing will be the same accessibility. It will not be restricted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just point out that the reason why it's just an air easement is because we view it to be important that the structural support for the bridge be on their property, not on the town's property. So that's why it's simply the easement over the air.
Thank you. And again, this is not a public hearing, but as members of the public would like to comment, feel free to come forward and comment. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission for a motion on the application, provided there's no further comments from members of the commission or Mr. Pagini. I didn't want to give you a chance to say if you had any comments.
No comments.
No comments. All right, at this point in time, I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve application or Connecticut General Statute 8-24 request for the town of Wallingford to grant an air rights easement to Choate Rosemary Hall for the proposed pedestrian bridge over Christian Street because it will improve pedestrian safety.
Do we have a motion on the application? Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fitzsimmons, voting beginning with Mr. Cohan.
Yes.
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 And yes.
Thank you very much.
It's been approved. Have a good evening, or it's been recommended, rather. Have a good evening. All right, it brings us to our next item. It's executive session. For executive session pursuant to Connecticut statutes, Statute 1-225F and Statute 1-2006B to discuss pending litigation in the matter of Carlson versus Planning and Zoning Commission. I'd ask all the members of the public if they would please clear the chamber so we could go into executive session. Oh, yes. I guess I would entertain a motion to vote to go into executive session.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we go, the Wallingford Planning and Zoning Commission goes into executive session.
Second.
Second by Mr. Fitzsimmons. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain?
No.
Are these gentlemen part of the executive? Again, we invite you very cordially to exit the council chambers, please, as we're in executive session. At this point in time, I'd like to go to our next item, which is consideration for the approval settlement for Carson and the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we come out of executive session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Benoit. Now, at this point in time, we jump down to consideration and approve settlement in Carlson versus Planning and Zoning Commission matter.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that that we approve the settlement in the Carlson and Planning and Zoning Commission matter with the stipulated judgment based on our discussion in the executive session.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fitzsimmons, voting beginning with Mr. Cohan.
Yes.
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 And yes. Moving, thank you, Attorney, Corporate Counsel Small. I assume you'll be sending us your invoice for your time here? Thank you. All right, as Mr. Fitzsimmons is leaving our meeting for a prior engagement, Mr. Rivard, if you please sit in for Mr. Fitzsimmons for the remainder of this, if you would, please. Okay, moving on. Turn this over to Mr. Pagini to close out the Planning and Zoning meeting.
Did we decide to have the sign regulation discussion, or is that just?
I'm not sure what we're going to discuss.
I think it was just regarding the political signs that we can't enforce anyway, but.
Oh, okay, if that's the reason why it's on there. I know I asked, but I see it's with just a signed discussion. I thought we were going to talk more about the regulations. Yeah, if you just bring us up to speed on that, or perhaps I can. You know, in our zoning regulations, there's regulation with respect to political signs, and I believe it says you can't put out political signs until, is it September 1st or something like that? There's a date, and I think our corporate counsel has told us many times that based upon federal regulations, whatever, it's not enforceable. You know, we've had it on our books for the last couple of years, and quite frankly, I've been remiss to ask Mr. Pagini to just to remove that because it's inconsistent with, would be, I guess, our, with federal regulation. Fair to say, Mr. Pagini?
Correct, yeah, and we are in the process of hopefully having a draft that'll go to the law department in the next month for the sign regulations, so there should be an update upcoming.
Okay, so at this particular point, I just ask commission members if they have any comments as far as just removing political signs from our regulations. Seeing none, I take it that would be on our agenda for next month. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Taking us down to the balance of this agenda.
Bond release, that was for BYK, their above-ground tank farm, and they completed all required site work, so that bond can be released.
All right, I entertain a motion to release the bond for BIC USA.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we release the bond for application 216-22, 524 South Cherry Street, BIC USA, Anton Vortelveld, $4,500 surety bond.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Cohan. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, and if you would take us through the rest of the agenda, please, Mr. Bajini.
Administrative approvals, any questions on any of those? If not, there's just July ZBA decisions. Any questions on any of those?
Any questions on the ZBA?
There'll be no meeting for September for Zoning Board of Appeals. Oh, no, in August.
No, August is there's no. All right, so with that, it closes our agenda. So at this point in time, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn the Planning and Zoning Commission's meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we adjourn the Wallingford Planning and Zoning Commission for Monday, August 12th, 2024.
Do we, a second on that?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? All right, at this particular point in time, I'd like to call to order the meeting of our Wallingford Aquifer Protection Agency meeting. It's going to be our Monday, August 12th, 2024 meeting. I'd like to introduce just the members of the agency that are here. To my immediate right is Jeff Cohan. Next to him is Brian Rivard. Next to me is J.P. Benoit. Next to J.P. is Steve Allenson. Then we have Dave Parent, Joseph Sanders, Cheryl Ann Tubley. At the lower table is our recording secretary. Kevin Pagini is our town planner, and I'm Jim Seichter, who is the chairperson of this agency. Our first item on our agenda, in fact, our only item, is permit renewal for NRWA LLC, 1103 Old Colony Road. And Mr. Allenson, if you'd please note all items for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a hazardous materials management plan, date of receipt July 12th, 2024. Conclusion has a certificate of completion in it. There is also an application for retail gasoline dealer's license with certifications and other required forms and data appended to it. And I think that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Allenson. And again, if the applicant would just please give us a brief overview of what we have here. If you gentlemen would please introduce yourselves also.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is Abdul Khan.
Sir, if you could please pull the microphone just a little bit closer to you, I'd appreciate that.
Yes, sir. So, good evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is Abdul Khan. I'm the owner of 1103 Old Colony Road and RWA LLC. And we have applied the license for Aquifer to open up the station. Was required to submit the hazardous material management plan, which I did to you guys. And it's briefly, everything's in it, all the details and everything. And I'm sure you guys have seen it. With me, Mr. Mike Cody is here. And I think if you have any questions, we will answer, but mostly everything is in that report with you.
Mr. Pagini, would you like to give us an overview and any comments you may have before I go to commission members?
I think we left it off with Mr. Khan just submitting the hazardous materials management plan, which he did submit. I did review it, and I believe Mr. Cody did find some minor inconsistencies that he'll discuss, but overall the substance I was okay with. So if he can review what was submitted, and I think if the commission is in agreement, then I think we can hopefully move forward on this tonight.
What were the minor inconsistencies that were pointed out?
I can answer that. My name's Mike Cody. They have to do with, well, just as an example, there's a small section in there on corrosion protection issues.
Sir, again, just pull the
I'm
microphone
sorry.
a little bit closer. That's fine.
I have hearing aids in, and this is...
Okay.
Anyway, there's a section on corrosion protection, which applies to steel tanks. And the tanks in the ground at this site are double-walled fiberglass, as is the piping. There's really hardly, there's no metal in the ground essentially at this point. So that needs to be, that 2 pages needs to be removed. The other thing that I would like to do is address the new Connecticut underground storage tank regulations, which the DEEP is in the process of finalizing. And what I'd like to be able to do is there's a section in the report on reporting obligations and testing frequency. Just as an example, the double-wall fiberglass tank is essentially a tank within a tank. There's a half-inch annular space around that. And it's a leak protection system, and it works very, very well. It's required to be tested now. I think it's every 3 years. I want to make sure that the DEEP doesn't change that frequency of testing. There's a few things like that in there. Reporting is the same thing with so much electronic monitoring of for leak detection and inventory control and spill prevention. The reporting obligations are changing. It used to be that you would keep reams of paper in the back office with all your data from all your reporting. A lot of it's electronic. A lot of it goes to the vendor who operates the monitoring systems themselves. So I just want to make sure that those kinds of details that are in the plan are consistent with what the DEEP's regs are asking for. Because essentially, this plan is about implementing the Connecticut UST regulations with respect to spill prevention and spill cleanup issues. So I just want to make it a little bit more consistent with that. This is what Kevin and I discussed this afternoon. And there's one other thing that I wanted to do. Mr. Khan knows exactly what to do if there's a spill at a site. He's a Class A operator, which is a license category that the DEEP grants to people who are aware of their system, understand the regulations, know what to do if there's a spill. He'll be hiring employees who don't have that knowledge. And I just want to fix up the front of the report so that if there is an issue, he happens to not be there, the employee can go right to the book. Page 1 is going to say who to call. Call 911, call the fire marshal, call the Connecticut spill hotline. Put those numbers on the front page, things like that. I don't think this is much work by any means, but I want it to be, you want it to be a useful document. You're asking for it for the right reason. It's sitting on top of a sole source aquifer. We want to make sure it works.
Sure. So just so I'm clear, we're looking to renew the permit, but would that, Mr. Pagini, would that renewal be subject to these the adjustments or changes, enhancement to the plan that's being discussed? Would that be a condition of the approval? Is that correct? If we do decide to approve?
Yes. Yeah. So he would just outline what he's potentially changing. I guess he would agree to it, almost like changes on a final plan. And as long as it's filed, I can go ahead and sign off on the registration renewal. Or if you would maybe like to see the plan administratively or something, but I don't think there's a lot missing, and I think it would hold up Mr. Khan for another month unnecessarily, from my perspective.
So it would all be subject to your final review, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Commission members with questions for the applicant? Seeing none? Excuse me? Oh, I'm sorry.
Last time we were here, you described the status of where you were at with the DEP. Is that progressing? And
Yeah, we met with them several months ago.
Right.
And we basically agreed on a groundwater monitoring program that's going to be, it's effectively set up. The plan has been prepared, submitted to DEP. They've, I think in their words, they authorized it. They won't use the word approve. And then what the next step was, I had to give it to Kevin so that he could either authorize it or approve it, and I believe that's been done. So what we're waiting to do is there's no. I took a sample of a well, a test well in the where the tanks are right now. and I analyzed it for basically all the petroleum constituents that you need to, in a situation like this, just so when I walked into that DEEP meeting, I'd have some sense of what water quality is like in the tank grave. And there were no detections of any petroleum constituents whatsoever. So I think it bought us a little bit of time, and this is taking us time, so that the agreement with DEEP was that we would move forward with the well installation and the sampling once he's up and running.
Got it. Okay, so that's why it's back with us to the point now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other commission members? At this point in time, I'd entertain a motion on the renewal of the permit.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the Aquifer Protection Regulation renewal request for 1103 Old Colony Road, subject to an updated material management plan being reviewed and approved by the planning and zoning officer, and two, that all notice of violations with the State of Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection are closed before the renewal shall be issued. This includes completion of the scope of work required by DEEP.
We have a motion on the application. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Cohan. Voting beginning with Mr. Rivard.
Yes.
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 And yes, the application's been approved, gentlemen. Have a good evening.
Thank
At this
you.
point in time, I see no other business before us. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we close the
We'll
Aquifer
see you in a month
Protection
at 10:30 at
Agency meeting.
Second.
Second by Mr. Cohan. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody abstain? Anybody object? We're closed. Thank you, gentlemen. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much.